Hello and welcome to the Four Nations by the UKEL. I'm Temporal, and on this lower bracket run this evening, I'm joined by Zapdos and Mile. Good evening, both.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, gonna be a good
Right.
day.
It is going to be an exciting day, at least, if not, for one of the Belfast Storm or Paragon teams, as they are both in our lower bracket run, matched up against Ruddy for a rematch for Paragon or for a new challenge for Belfast Storm. Do or die here tonight in our best of three. As you can see, we're in round 2 there down at the bottom. Verdant already locked for finals, and Ruddy gatekeeping the end of the lower bracket. So both, we're going to talk about some of our rosters this evening. Zapdos, will you talk us through Paragon?
Would absolutely love to. Of course, Paragon, a team that has had a few struggles throughout the seasons, finishing themselves off with 6-2. And the way they like to play is mostly going for this meatball style, having Enchanted towards the bot lane with Sack, and then having a hyper carry like an Ezreal, even a Ziggs if they want to try and play away from him. All you really need to know is this team likes to get late game, and the main person who carries them do that is Timotoppo, because I had all of these notes about this player, but all I got told behind the scenes is Black Bloxer absolutely loves this person, thinks that they are king, god, and everything above it. So if I have a prediction today, we're either going to see this player absolutely pop off and see Black Bloxer be completely truthful, or if they absolutely run it down, I'm going to have a great time anyway.
As you can see, particularly good showing on Yone earlier in the split, and some fantastic stats so far. So yeah, no pressure, team. You got a little bit of work cut out this evening. Your strongest opponent yet.
I mean, look at that KDA, 38-20. That is something that, if you just look statistically, he is one of the best mid laners in the league. Of course, Vixen, very difficult opponent here in the semi-finals, but decent chance to maybe take over here.
Yeah, talking of the opponents, Mele, this evening, we've got the Belfast Storm.
Yeah, and I think you already mentioned how Paragon had a little bit of a slip here and there. However, I think Belfast Storm actually also had a few slips here and there, but they are coming in strong with their roster. We just talked about who is our highlighted player on this team, and someone said Mr. Freeze, so I think AD carry will be an interesting position here. However, you already mentioned the mid lane matchup, which is going to be very interesting. Vixen, very strong player on Ari. I'm very interested to see if we're going to get that champion from her today. And obviously, as a woman in esports, I'm always here for the women in esports, so rock and roll. Apart from that, I think it's going to be very interesting to see how Belfast Storm perform against Paragon, because their play style is not necessarily the same. They do like to go for a little bit of a 1-3-1 combo type of game style, which is probably their comfort. So they want to push in different lanes at the same time. And if they can make it work, I can see them having a good shot here. However, personally, I'm not sure if they're in the right headspace there.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. The head-to-head 2-0 out of the group in Paragon's favor, then finishing second to Belfast Storm's fourth. So we'll have to see who Belfast can rely on in these tough times. Mr. Freeze has had a great split. For Melee, we've got a graphic about Dunlosey, a veteran jungler for the Belfast Storm.
Yeah, definitely one of the bigger players here in this tournament, in this league. I think if you look at not only what he's been playing competitively, but also if you look at the solo queue, like, you can see the grind. You can see that there is a lot of work going on, a lot of will to improve, ways to move forward, and he has had incredible showings and an incredible history as a player. There is so much legacy here for this player already, and it would be a little bit of the story that just continues on if he ends up actually making it further in the tournament here. So I'm very excited to see that. But in the head-to-head with Snapback, he looks like the stronger player. However, Paragon has other players to build on as well. So I'm very interested to see how this jungle matchup is going to work out, because they are both very impactful for their teams, I would say.
Yeah, we do have a graphic. We're trying to get together for that. Trying to shove it up on the screen. It wouldn't be the Four Nations without some slight struggles in the getting the thing on the screen department. Is our hallmark. It's what we're known for. which is fantastic. So
Yeah, it's the big classic. The one thing we didn't actually mention about Dunlosey, which we can go into and what we'll see on the graphic, is how much of a legacy he already has. You had a good understanding of he has one, but what's he actually done? And finally, with the graphic here, Insomnia 72, second place. Okay, cool. Not that good.
Yeah.
UKL
No,
2023, he wins.
Very good series. I was casting that one.
I was trying to hype it up of like second place. He can do better. UKL 2023, the literal league we are in now. He's won it before, not once, but done twice on 2 different teams. If you want to have that legacy, you need to win here in the UKL. And to be honest with me, I'm surprised this player hasn't had a better opportunity in a higher division. Of course, NLC Division 2 not being around anymore, but definitely maybe another opportunity at the end of the season to rise up higher.
Yeah, I think that also puts like a lot of pressure on him as well. You know, like as you mentioned, there is already a lot of legacy, and there is maybe this question mark of, oh, how far can it go? And now knowing that today is a do or die situation, you really want to make it to the finals. You want to end your year on a high note and maybe therefore put yourself in a good position for next year. I think there is a lot of pressure on this one for sure.
Yeah, it's big stakes, and we know him as the man in the hat, just with his fishing rod down by the pond. So I have to see if he catches anyone out today. And we do have the graphic for our featured matchup this evening. It is the jungle, as we've alluded to. Snepex, the big show showing on Paragon, winning this spring, as Dunlosey won the autumn before, and a fantastic head-to-head to be had this evening. You know, Snepex, we can call him the enabler, the Gragas. It's big. Was a big proponent of our big AP Gragas at the last RPS. And we couldn't quote anyone but Doctor this evening, who's been following Dunlosey for so long. Both is getting away with it enough? Is it setting up for the team? Is it destroying that mid game? What do you want to see from these junglers tonight, Zathos?
I mean, it's just so illegal that we're calling him get away with it. He's won 2 titles in the UKL. He's clearly got some kind of game plan that's working out for him. And the main thing I saw with those stats was 60% to 71% kill participation. You call an enabler. I would actually class Dunlosey as the better enabler. That's the statistic that tells you how much he is with the team. So everything is hitching on Dunlosey, finding these early game plays. And I believe that he can do it. The big thing that we haven't really talked about is the actual champ pools of both of these players. We talked about having the Gragas and having that Poppy. And I think that's going to be super crucial coming into this game. As of course, everybody on Belfast Storm wants to be this big engaged doors, wants to try and go in. But maybe Snepex plays that Poppy to stop the engage, maybe the Gragas to disrupt the fights. That's the way that Paragon can try and win. So this matchup, a lot more interesting than what you think.
So what we're saying is not the enabler in like playing for the team, but the enabler in here is your kill participation and your advantage. Now, please take it from me and carry on.
He's like a Braum. He's just that meat shield of a wall saying, okay, they're going to try and engage with us. I'm gonna stop them. Seraphine, please hard farm until late game and then just make sure I don't die. It's all about being together as a team.
All right. We got to move on quickly. The draft almost upon us. Predictions for tonight. Hopefully on the screen any second. We're nearly on the screen any second. Mile, what have you predicted for the series tonight as we get that together?
Well, I kind of looked at the pathing so far, like where have these teams started and where are they trying to go? And I actually said 2-0 for Paragon.
Zapdos for you. I'm suspecting. I'm suspecting something.
Last time I went against Belfast, they won. So I'm going to do some reverse psychology, and I'm going to vote for Paragon to try and win here. So maybe Belfast Storm could win from that. Maybe the opposite of a caster curse, but we'll have to see.
A reverse curse. Okay, is that 2-0 as well?
Yeah.
Oh, then we have a unanimous desk. I'll join in 2-0 to Paragon.
Oh, it's over. It's not even a point of playing the game.
Oh, yeah. Lord.
Synapses are gone, and now no doubt some power picks up next.
Yeah, when I've been looking at both of these teams, what they like to pick and ban, the things getting banned away from Belfast Storm have been the Udyr, the Rel, and most importantly, that Nocturne as well. Seems like the Rel might be a little bit more flexible and change towards that LeBlanc, but it's always these 3 bans who are trying to stop the main key parts of Belfast to engage.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's also bans that work very well with the meta that we played in, with the meta that we learned to love or hate, depending on where you're sitting on the table. But so far, I don't think that the bans are necessarily very surprising, because also banning Skarner is still such a big deal. Banning
So
Ziggs,
broken.
who is also a very great AD carry champion that just, you can leave him alone. You can do your thing on the map and Ziggs can still have a huge impact in the late game. However, banning Aurora is also like a no-brainer in a way, right? Because she is still very, very useful, and we're still in that phase of, is she still a new champion and that's why she's broken, or is she just not getting fixed at all? We don't know, but first pick, very interesting. Big fan of the Ashe.
Oh, it's going to be Ashe Seraphine. I bet you now. So I absolutely agree if you want the Ziggs ban being a decent ban. The problem is, Seraphine has the wave clear like Ziggs, just is slightly worse at taking these towers. The way you can counteract that is having an AD carry instead. Let him do that job. So, of course, focus on using that combination of those two. But still, Ashe first pick, love it, simple. Makes me think the Paragon wants to play more for the mid lane than for actual bot lane.
Yeah.
Okay. The diving duo, Dunlozzi's and Zhao on the table here and locked in. That's Belfast saying they're going to fight and go short range. No time for scaling, no time for that super team fight that Paragon know and love. What are you countering with as Paragon here? Is it Poppy time? Is it time, Snapx?
Man, I don't mind a Poppy here. I still think Seraphine is the big option. Belfast Storm in their last 4 games have picked this exact combination of Kai'Sa and the Xing Zhao. So Paragon, they know this was going to get picked no matter what. So what is their counteraction? It seems like it's that Sejuani. Pretty good with, if they try and engage on the Sedge, can just tank it.
I like this. I think this is great so far. I mean, Ashe is by far one of the strongest AD carries in the game right now, in my opinion. You do have the Sejuani, which is a great enabling champion for both engages, but also when you look towards maybe playing around topside a little bit, Yone still one of the most broken picks you can have. So I feel like Paragon, they feel very comfortable here so far. It's still a little surprising that they haven't picked up that Seraphine you were mentioning, because that's absolutely up their alley. On the other side, with the Kai'Sa being picked, that's an absolute comfort for Belfast Storm as well as the Xin Zhao that has worked before. Now, Lissandra is a little bit of a, let's say, different approach than considering what they picked lately in the last few games.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. The Lissandra pick I am liking quite a bit, as Paragon wants to play for the mid 2 versus 2. Lissandra can either try and fight it as well with the level 6 coming through and trying to burst with the Kai'Sa and Xing Zhao, or can just stay in lane, survive, and just let the jungler scale as much as possible. But Paragon are very clearly saying, we are not here for bot lane, we're doing all that we can to get our mid laner ahead of Timur Top, and we talked about before, he is the key member of this Paragon lineup.
This is looking very interesting. The fact that they now have banned Seraphine and Braum is like, they have seen through everything that Paragon could have planned here. And now picking up the Rel, which is surprisingly still open, because Cryo in the second ban rotation was towards topside. That is very strong. I think Rel Kai'Sa is a very strong combination to have on your team. I wonder what they are going to round it off with for Belfast Storm, because Cassante obviously the pick, right? But it looks like you will have to kind of find a counter pick here, which maybe is not necessarily the worst position to be in.
I don't hate the Jax pick in here, mostly because of the Gragas being the major counter pick still open. Very AP heavy if Belfast Storm want to pick that. So you're kind of forced in a position of, if you get this counter pick, your team comp's not going to feel too good as well. But so far, I'm absolutely loving this Paragon lineup, how they've been able to understand what Belfast Storm is always going to pick. As Belfast, we talked about
what's coming for the support then? What's coming for the support? Are they going to hold range? You know, they've no longer got this sort of floating platform.
They're big into enchanters. Anything enchanter-wise. So
the premier enchanter locked in. Spot on. It's Renata.
Yeah, it's either going to be Renata or it was going to be Lulu. I think Renata is just a little bit better. Janna could have been a possibility, but maybe that's a bit more cooking, as the Gragas, like said before.
Carrier, get out of here. We're not ready for that. We're not ready. It's been a little while, and maybe we'll see Verdant pick it up. They do have a Janna Enjoyer on the team. Gragas in last. It's been the talk of the top lane. It's the reason I don't play it in solo queue anymore. Moved over to the jungle because I can't deal with how omnipresent this Gragas is. Melee, is there any hope for Paragon's top side? That is 2 counter picks and 2 aggressive champions.
I mean, I think there is a lot of hope, especially because you picked up Sejuani, and Sejuani enjoys to play around topside. So maybe if you find ways to, put pressure on the enemy top lane in early game, like, give it a visit here and there, maybe try to get your top lane ahead. There is absolutely a possibility for Paragon to have hope here. However, Belfast Storm definitely found really great reactions, and I feel like they came in very, very prepared. So I'm really excited to see how they are going to actually play it out on the map.
Optimistic on Belfast Storm from Melee. Zathos, your overall impressions, please.
Overall impression, I'd mostly have to agree with you there. Still a little bit too AP heavy for what I like, even though Xingzao, of course, being a decent AD threat. But the main thing that I'm thinking about is this Renata pickup, because Belfast Storm were very clearly saying, play for level 6, lock somebody up and blow them up. And that's perfectly what Renata stops with that W. So if Paragon is able to tank that engage with the Renata W and then afterwards find the kill, they are going to be able to win these long extended fights. So it's like we said from the start, Belfast Storm want to burst somebody out, play for a 1-3-1 later with the Gragas and with the Lissandra, and Paragon want to play more of a meatball comp, making sure that if they can tank the engage, re-engage afterwards, and win the team fight.
Yeah, I'm hoping we're going to see Mr. Freeze on the flashy Kaiser build, the new one with Ginsu's first. That'd be really cool. I think it sort of suits this team setup. It's really nice for getting in and around the Yone. And as you mentioned, bursting someone out that's getting involved, it's the quick turnaround. Fingers crossed in conjunction with the Lissandra, which is going to mess with all this dive. You might get the bailout, but other than that, sticky to walk towards either of these teams. Ashen Sejuani with the freeze, Lissandra with much of the same. Going to push you both. Are your predictions still valid? Are we going to have a quick one tonight?
Hey, I hold strong. I don't care whatever draft you give me, whatever the prediction is. You just have to stick with it. It's a bit when you're a fan of just anything. Whatever you pick first, just stick with it.
Yeah, I gotta agree. I can only see that there is Yone, and Yone is like a comfort pick here if you look at the solo queue history.
Oh, so, we've been gassing up Timatapa. The Yone was the picture for a reason.
Yeah.
There was one tidbit of information that I did get told. So, of course, down below, as you see, Belfast Storm versus Paragon, 2-0 Paragon. I got told by Black Bloxer that if Paragon lost first game, they're actually going to sweep the series and win in 2-1 fashion. So even if they lose first game, I think we're fine.
Comfort zone.
Exactly.
Game 1 would just be like, just test the draft. Just have a go. Figure it out. Scrim on stage. We better play the game now just after that.
They don't even have a practice scrim.
Oh, absolutely. That's what game 1's for. We're going to go to a quick break while we deal with some of our technical bits. We will be back in a few moments with our casters for game 1 of Paragon versus Belfast Storm. We'll see you in a minute.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the UKL broadcast. I'm going to be joined by Black Bloxer, and well, we have such an exciting game today. I told you on the green room just before we went live, I'm going to set you up for multiple monologues, but you yourself, you're very hyped up about one individual playing today. Would you like to, explain to us for the 1000th time who that is?
It's got to be Timothy, right? I've spoken so much about this guy, and I do just love watching him play. Honestly, has been probably my favorite player to watch across the course of my casting career so far. And this is a very exciting matchup to see him in. On that sort of legendary Yone at this point has really been pulling out the best performances of the tournament so far on this Yone. And into the Lissandra, I mean, Lissandra's a little bit of a neutralizer. It's pretty unlikely that you're going to be able to get solo kills in this individual lane, but the big, messy team fights with a Belfast Storm composition that really wants to go forwards, that should open up this Yone to get a lot done. As we say, that getting chased out, going to take a decent chunk of damage. That Electrocute proc out of Vixen is going to take a good chunk of his health away. So, starting off at a bit of a disadvantage, but I'm not worried.
Yep. I mean, I should be fine. This matchup in the mid lane, quite interesting. It's sort of an aggressor into a neutralizer. Vixen shouldn't necessarily be able to get solo kills onto a Yone. The natural progression of Lissandra picked into these particular champions is like, you contain them. You don't kill them yourself, but you could potentially set up for your jungler to do so. So I feel like once level 6 comes, that's where Timotopper might need to look out for any potential ganks. But what do you think in terms of the 2v2 between the mid jungle? Because they're obviously very aggressive. They both obviously synergize well with each other, but is there one you favor over the other?
I guess it depends what bit of the map we're on and sort of what time we're at, because the duo that you can get between a Lissandra and a Xin Zhao in this lane matchup around these small skirmishes is going to be incredibly strong. Really is such a great setup champion, the Lissandra, that can just make it so much easier to play this Xin Zhao, who obviously brings so much damage to the table early on. Yone really needs some more items underneath his belt to really be able to pop off. 2 to 3 item point is where the Yone goes from being terrifying to something you just don't want to sit in the same lane as at all. And the Sejuani can really help that once you get into those big team fights. Is very good for setting you up in and amongst a big team fight, absorbing a lot of the damage, taking a lot of the sort of focus away from the Yone. Early on, though, I really don't know how much you want to be the aggressors. As much as it is, yes, Lissandra's the neutralizer in this lane, the Xin Zhao wants to use that to the advantage to get some kills onto him, and so I don't know how much you really want to, as Paragon's mid-jungle, actually be too aggressive in the lane itself. Perhaps, though, roaming the Yone around to get into the top lane, or I think more probably the bot lane, could be a great way to do it.
Yeah, definitely, and I think the desk obviously was quite vocal about which draft they preferred over the other. Do you have any preference in terms of which draft you feel fits each team better than the other?
I think they're very emblematic of the two teams, right? It's a very forward, aggressive style out of Belfast Storm, exactly what they've been looking to do. Dunlossie has been so good at sort of spearheading that, and this composition just keeps wanting to run forwards. The desk was absolutely right in that one. Paragon's isn't quite as teamfight heavy as I perhaps would have expected. They usually like to go a little bit more with the sort of setup in the top lane. The Jack certainly can do it, but is a little bit more looking towards the 1v1 matchup, but you don't really win it now that there's a Gragas in your lane, though. But I just think this is very, very much a sort of composition that they can make work, Paragon. I think that you can try play around this bot lane, but more than anything, I think that you kind of just want to allow this early game to happen to you and get onto the map later on. Get some items onto your main carries and then go from there. Because unless you can really protect the Ashe, I think Paragon could begin to run into some issues where, not that they run out of damage necessarily, but it makes teamfights way harder when people aren't slowed, when your Ashe isn't able to give that consistent damage and allow for Kenji and Timotopper to pick their moments to jump in.
Yeah, and there's actually some really interesting, I guess, interactions here. Like, of course, the top side, we've seen historically Jax does struggle a bit into the Gragas, just with the kit works, and the body slam does interrupt the jump in from the Jax. And the bot side, obviously, Ashe, quite a pretty good counter into the Kai'Sa. I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is like one of Kai'Sa's worst lanes. That passive that Ashe does with the passive slows is just so annoying for a champion that likes to play around mobility. So, it's cool interactions to see. I think, honestly, I think the Lissandra, the problem with I see with this champion is it does have a massive power hole once it gets into the latter stages of the game.
Yeah.
And so if it does go too late, that is where the Lissandra, it almost turns into a support champion if it goes too late.
Yeah, absolutely it does. You're really looking to just set up for your team fights, sort of keep your carries alive, potentially just stop one of the main aggressors in a team fight from jumping on top of you, rather than being able to deal that damage for yourself. But I don't know necessarily the Belfast Storm mind that too much, right? They want to play around this early game. That's where the Xin Zhao is at its strongest. That's where the Kai'Sa can do its best work. Once you get that 1-2 beginnings of items going, then you can really play this one out. I think you're going to be happy enough with Belfast to try play through this early game. So far, obviously, we're only 3.5 minutes in with that pause. We haven't seen anything too explosive, although there are supports and junglers hovering around the Scuttle Crab. I'd be surprised if we actually see a skirmish right now, and no. Paragon recognize that they're not the strongest ones in this situation and do just back off.
Yeah, I think the key thing there was Vixen having priority in the mid lane at that moment in time. And he might be getting ganked as Dunlosi, looking for that gank onto Timur Topper, is running away from SnapX, having to use the flash, uses the E as well, and now is a sitting duck, does get some support from SnapX, and Kenji is going to jump in with that stun, and is going to just lock people down with the first blood. Doesn't indeed go to Belfast Storm. Kenji's going to trade one back. Varren has moved up from the bottom side, and it's a double kill, locked in for the Jax. 4 minutes into the game, Varren has to run away with the crash down, gets pulled back by the handshake, and SnapX might not have enough damage to finish off the Rel, but the kill score in favor of Paragon in this early skirmish.
And that's 2 kills immediately going over to the Jax right here. We can watch this one back again. Timur Topper stepping a little bit too far forward, and Dunlosi is going to be able to recognize that. The Soul Unbound is helpful, but only in buying a little bit more time. I thought there was a situation in which Timur Topper could just about survive right here. You can see the flash in from Kenji, just trying to keep his mid laner alive. Not quite able to do so, but then Kenji's able to just start popping off right here. And 2 kills going over to this Jax is huge, because yeah, that's not a great matchup for the Jax into Gragas early on, but once you get 2 kills under your belt, that evens things up a massive amount. You can see Kenji right now sat on those boots, is just going to be a little bit easier to get away from this Gragas, but can potentially use that early gold to his advantage. Could be looking at another gank.
Yeah. Another gank, Timur Topper, no flash again, and just as we said, the Lissandra is merely a setup in this particular lane, and it looks like Timur Topper is going to have to pay the price. 2 deaths now. He looks to be the focus for Belfast Storm.
And that's just after teleporting back into the lane as well, so that's a massive disadvantage. You know, that big wave you can see underneath the mid lane tower, all of that is going to be gold and XP just immediately lost. A really good gank right there from Belfast, recognizing that this is a lane you can really bully, and this is exactly how you need to deal with the Yone. You need to bully it as much as possible, put it behind, because if you let the Yone have a free lane, the moment that he actually gets those items under his belt can be almost impossible to deal with. As it stands, you still have to be respectful of the Yone, and is always going to be useful in a utility sense, but isn't going to be this massive threat in the early mid-game that he could potentially be. That, though, is now going to be on top of the Jax, but the kills that they've been picking up for Belfast Storm has been spread pretty evenly. One onto Vixen, I think more importantly, Dunlosi got that early kill, so isn't going to fall behind on this Xin Zhao.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be really important for Dunlosi to be on ahead of the curve on SnapX. I think Xin Zhao wants to be very aggressive in the early game. We saw what Xin Zhao is able to get done in actually the World's Finals. I think it was Ona who picked it in the last game and just really ran the show on the Xin Zhao, paired with the Galio, and Lissandra does a similar style of setup. So if the Xin Zhao can get going, it can be really, really lethal. I will say, I'm curious to see how SnapX utilizes the passive with the Jax and the Yone, as could potentially see a fight. Vixen takes that safe claw away to safety, and yeah, because we haven't seen, I mean, we saw that initial action happening in the top side, kill credit, like, went in favor of Paragon, so I think utilizing that Sejuani passive with the Jax and the Yone is going to be what Paragon want to do, and where they want to play towards in the map.
Absolutely, there is really good setup alongside this Sejuani right now, and a lot of follow-up if the Sejuani ever wants to go leaping forwards. Sometimes when you go for those long-range ultis on the Sejuani, you can kind of outrun the rest of your team. SnipX just stole that crab away. That feels bad for Dunlosi. But with this team, you know, with the fate sealed, with all of the jumping that you can do on a Jax, there is plenty of follow-up. You're very unlikely to outrun your backline, and then your frontline, sorry, and then you've also got this Ashe to be able to deal slows and make it so much more difficult to play this match out. We've got so many slow champions, a lot of CC. I'm not surprised that we've seen Mercury Treads as the pickup up in the top lane for Kenji. And You know, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some more elsewhere, because there really are a ton of slows, a ton of just
Yeah.
difficult champions to get away from in this game.
Yeah, and I mean, Merc Trades does have a lot of value, of course. I'm curious to see what build the Kaiser is going to run. Obviously, with this champion, there are like 7 billion builds he can do, but I think
Yeah.
the AP build is one I would not recommend to go. You already have the Gragas and the Lissandra, so I think you're leaning towards more AD heavy build. But actually, we're seeing an explosive cask in the top side as Don Losi is arriving for a
No
gank
flash.
onto the Jax. There is a small shutdown as well to be picked up, and that does go into the pocket of the Xin Zhao. Really, really nice punish. As you said, no flash on the Jax, and that's the first play Don Losi goes for.
And that's going to be a bit of an issue. I mean, there was already a big CS gap happening, and now you're pretty far behind. You're going to lose a massive wave, cannon wave as well, a couple of turret plates over to sign out Sprinter 2. It's definitely going to open up this gold gap. Thank you very much, production, for showing us. It's not too big at the moment. Hang on, Arrow.
Yeah, engage happening on the bot side, crash down onto Sack and the
Oh.
killer instinct, but he's
Oh,
not
wait.
right-clicking the right
What?
targets. He was focusing the minions, and now Snapx is here. The Glacial Prison doesn't find a target, as Varan has to go the other way to lead people away from his AD carry,
no.
and has to pay the price for the sins of Mr. Freeze, as he just couldn't quite right-click the right units.
Oh, we were talking about Mr.
Oh.
Freeze, hyping him up earlier on, but that is a disaster for this bottom lane. It had been such a quiet bottom lane. They're dead even on CS. But Sack is spotted, is on vision right here, and just the good recognition out of the Belfast on bot lane to go for this play, and Sack takes so much damage right here. Mr. Freeze is absolutely right to go for this one. Minion. Minion. Flashes over the wall, and then to make matters worse, Snipex arrives, doesn't manage to hit the Glacial Prison, which at least allows Mr. Freeze to walk away, but Varan is going to be having to fall for his ADC sins, and oh, that feels bad. Kenji just about managing to jump away from a potential solo kill, and things become explosive on the map.
Yeah, and suddenly it's almost like a lot of individual errors I'm seeing happening from both sides. Kenji almost dying to that solo kill just there. Mr. Freeze, unfortunate, but realistically, that's a pretty bad mistake to be making, especially when you're using your flash, your ultimate, your support has to die for you afterwards, and actually they're just going to jump onto Sack. Hopefully this time around, he's going to die? Yes, okay, he is going to die. I was, you know, can't land the auto attacks, just land the W instead, you know what I mean?
Yeah, much easier to land, obviously. I too hate landing my auto-targeted abilities. No, I mean, that is going to be a good catch. A little bit of karma, I guess, as Sack does go down. Is going to be 2 of the grubs going over to Paragon. The final one will go to Belfast, and this is an attempt at a solo kill from Last. Mr. Freeze is all alone, and trying to walk away from an Ashe is terrifying.
Yeah, it's terrifying, that approach velocity, giving Last so much move speed, but the teleports are coming in. Vixen realizes that Timber Topper is following him right behind, as Last is firing arrows and just not stopping. Mr. Freeze gets comboed up by Timber Topper. Last is going to be able to get the kill, but Vixen trades one back as the combo underneath the turret finishes off the Yone. Varan now stepping forward, but Sack has respawned from the base to try and stop any incoming threats onto the AD carry, and this is why Ashe is such high in priority. You cannot run away from that champion. A bit of a whiffed combo on the belly bot, but it does not matter because the cask pushes Kenji in range of Dunlosi and has to use the flash defensively as Belfast Storm. Well, this is a really back and forth game so far. Fight happening on bot side, fight happening on top side. It is chaos everywhere we go.
It is absolutely, but Belfast are coming out a little bit ahead. They've got themselves about a 1.5k gold lead. And that is about the best that you can say, because it really is explosive. The bot lane absolutely falling in the favor of Paragon right now. Top lane feeling much, much better for Belfast Storm. Paragon, they're going to look to use that bot lane priority to turn it into a Drake right now. There is going to be a response, and actually a lot of members of Belfast Storm are on the way.
Yeah, this dragon is the second for Belfast, and so you can see Paragon do not want to give this up, but they might be forced out of the pit before they can make a decision on what to do. Here comes the hostile takeover. It is gone onto everyone. The smite secured by Snipex. Vixen has to flash over the wall as the fight is just going to continue with the Kaiser being the focus. Vixen goes back in and turns it around with so much AoE damage. Last is going to try to flash forward to kill the Lissandra. Does manage to trade 4 for 3. Sorry, it's a 3 for 3, my bad. But what a chaotic fight. And it looks so heavily in favor of Paragon, but Vixen able to turn it around at the end.
Man, oh man, Vixen really needed to pull the mega performance out on that one. Still, it was a triple kill going over to Last. I said stolen by Snipex on this one, but is it really a steal if you just manage to get back in the pit to take the thing that you started? It's such a messy team fight. Last is kept on the edge of this fight really effectively by Varen. I know that he ends up dying eventually, but keeps Last away from this fight for so long. If Last was able to join that fight earlier on, it's going to be a wipe right here for Paragon. Instead, Vixen, what a performance out of her right there to turn things back to being 3 for 3. The gold gap remains for Belfast, but this game is just crazy. This is the kind of explosivity that we were really hoping for from these two teams.
Yeah, I think these two teams have shown throughout the split that this is the kind of playstyle that they both subscribe to, and they are committing to it. No punches are being held at all, and even, you know, in the bot lane here, we do see a kill almost traded. I think the minions might be able to finish off Last here. The Ashe is going to survive. I didn't quite see what happened there. Mr. Freeze, unfortunately, does have to die once more. Potential dive on the top side.
4 people
here. Yeah, there's a lot of people. 4 people. Kenji, very low HP. No flash. Snepex does have that ultimate coming up soon. Vixen already going to pull the trigger. Does have the tools to stay alive underneath the turret. Wait,
but they're living.
Wait, but they're living. The turret aggro, and it's being traded for kills. Dunlosi almost dropping 1 for 1 just for now. But look at the turrets dropping in the mid lane, dropping in the bot lane. You commit 4 people and only trade a 1 for 1. That is not a good trade, as Paragon do end up minimizing that gold deficit that they had.
So this is what happened in the bot lane. Looks like Mr. Freeze just steps up a little bit too far, doesn't have a support in the area, doesn't even get hit by the arrow or the volley afterwards, but the second that you get engaged upon by an Ashe, very difficult to get away, and yeah, that's what we were talking about. The joy of the Renata is you can bring people back with that W. I think more impactfully, though, is this top lane play. You bring 4 members up, like you said. You're losing your mid lane tower. You're losing your bot lane tower. You've also lost a champion in the bot lane, too. And this is only a 1 for 1. Vixen does the right thing by going in and initially taking the turret aggro and then popping the ulti, but it's actually just one counter-strike that comes out of Kenji that just sort of ruins the plans. Everybody's stunned in place for a second, does quite a lot of damage at this point in the game as well. Yeah, not going to be ideal. That has brought the gold gap back down a little bit. It's now under 1,000 gold at this point. We've got the next Drake spawning in 2 minutes time. I think this could be a big explosive team fight. Unless, of course, these teams decide to just fight randomly, which I wouldn't put past them.
No, I mean, to be honest, it doesn't seem like macro is the kind of gameplay that either of these teams are looking to put down. It is just straight up fist fighting over these objectives. They are not scared of each other. But I think the one thing, right, is when Last is activated in these fights, he just does so much damage. And Vixen, right now, is the key focus for Belfast Storm, as the Herald is going to be started up here by Paragon. Just as I said, Belfast Storm not willing to give this up for absolutely free, and then making their entry into the pit. Teleport being channeled behind enemy lines. It's going to be the Jax, and the Gragas TP is falling very, very late. Vixen not in the fight just yet. There's breaks out already. Dunlosi brought down to low HP. Have to flash away with the ultimate channeled on, and a beautiful crash down from Baron. It's going to lock down everyone from Paragon, as Belfast Storm are running rampant in this team fight. It doesn't matter how fed your Ashe is. If Baron finds an engage like that, he's going to get absolutely blown up. Timatopper on the other side of the fight, just set to clear these minions out. The Herald is being finished off by Dunlosi on the other side. With this dragon spawning very, very soon, Paragon just have to retreat with any members alive.
Varen, that was beautiful. Exactly the engage that was needed, because the beginning of that fight looked good for Paragon. They pulled the trigger on the TP earlier, and they get into this fight in a good spot. The Ashe arrow goes wide, and then the hostile takeover only lands onto Dunlosi, so he just keeps hitting enemy champions, and then just lives, and lives, and lives, and it doesn't matter that you're able to get a couple of champions low, because that engage out of Varen was disgusting. And that's a huge injection of gold that Belfast needed, just at the point at which it felt like they were stalling out a little bit. And now we've got the next Drake spawning up in just a second's time. And it looks like there's just going to be a concession here. Paragon, they don't want to fight again. They've become a little bit scared of it. And they're just going to give over this first Mountain Drake.
Yeah, they are. And actually, Vixen teleporting up into the top side with 2 people there. So they're really not wanting to give anything over at all, as they start maneuvering some Paragon members over to the side of Vixen. Vixen will just be able to get away with the claw. So they get this dragon free. I think Timatopper should be able to break down this top lane turret. But I think it's 2 sides of the story here. One thing I've realized, Belfast Storm have a lot of AoE damage, Paragon have a lot of single target damage, and it's just proving too much in these extended team fights. But speaking of, there is a tower dive happening. Vixen uses the ultimate beautifully. Topper gets absolutely styled on as the stasis is just going to juke the fate sealed of Topper. Vixen survives on the top side. Belfast Storm break down this mid lane turret. They're even going to get a second charge as they commit it over onto Vixen. There might be a second go at the bullet as I'm seeing a tower dive being repeated onto that Lissandra. There is a shutdown available, but Vixen surviving for now. Is even just going to flash away. Belfast Storm break down 2 turrets in the mid lane. Vixen survives everything. Arrow's not going to land onto Mr. Freeze. They're just trying to look to get away. I am seeing a potential collapse here, but a lot of tools was used to try kill off that Lissandra. Kenji not able to find that engage, and I think everyone from Belfast Storm just pulled off the biggest evacuation of their lives as no one drops after they break those 2 turrets.
Absolutely, you basically get those 2 turrets for free. The fact that we only watch Vixen flash at the very end of the second attempt at that dive is crazy. The fighting just does not stop, though.
No, it doesn't. Dunlosi is actually going to cancel some recalls and make an engage onto Snepix. Hostile takeover gets dodged away. Dunlosi with the Crescent Guard is staying alive, and in comes Vixen to lay the hurt on everybody. Mr. Freeze picks up a triple kill as last is going to fall. Sack now has to flash away from the explosive cast. Is going to survive, but the rest of his team is in shatters as Belfast Storm are just running rampant this game.
Oh, it's Paragon Gaming, baby. They're just gonna keep fighting, keep running at you, and unfortunately, it is not working. Belfast Storm have their number in this game, are just happy to turn these fights around again and again and again, and a big part of why these fights are going wrong is that Last just is not allowed to do damage. It's just sitting there, hitting on Dunlosi the entire time, and this champion just doesn't take any damage, right? The second that you've got yourself that initial item, especially now you've also got the big shield that comes from the Sterax, you don't die, you don't care, you heal so much from hitting everybody around you. You can play these one out so much easier, and absorbing all of the damage from the enemy ADC, it makes it so much easier for everybody else on Belfast Storm to play this one out. Look at the shutdowns on them right now, massive gold available all across the board if Paragon could just win a team fight, but it doesn't feel like they're able to right now. Second item's just about being completed for a couple members of Paragon. There's still another full item away from coming online, whereas Belfast Storm composition is here and it's ready to play.
Exactly, and I actually see some functionalities of Paragon's composition in a 1-3-1 scenario. However, they are not playing it like a 1-3-1 scenario. They're actually...
That's not fighting. What do you mean?
Straight up looking for team fights with their composition that want to play side lane. So it is a little bit confusing, and maybe they just haven't, understood what their win conditions are properly as in this game. They've been sucked into the fights by Belfast Storm. Maybe there's an aspect to it that Belfast Storm are being the ones to facilitate that themselves, and... yeah, right now they are up against the wall and they have to do anything they can to get back into it.
Yeah, they are not out of this game yet, but it is certainly going to be a mountain to climb at this point, down by 5,000 gold. Yeah, rough position to be in.
Rough position, but of course, I think that being said, there are ways to get back into this game if they can just stall it for extra time. Once Yone gets that third item in, does outscale the Lissandra. Whether that's, I'm surprised the Wit's End hasn't come in yet, because I feel like that has a lot of value in a game like this. The Kai'Sa, for
jungle
example.
gap.
Oh god, yeah. I mean, it's a Sejuani, so I guess you're not that concerned about gold, but
she
it's
doesn't
still
need
pretty
gold.
big.
It's just the shock value of seeing it. There's also 1,000 gold in the bot lane as well. Mr. Freeze, after that, initial whoopsie of not hitting the champion and instead taking a lovely little bit of CS on that bot lane dive, has since, strapped his carry pants back on and has been absolutely crushing. Is taking a really interesting build. I'm enjoying just the rapid fire that is being laid down right here by Mr. Freeze. 30 seconds until the next Drake. It would be sole point if Belfast can pick it up for themselves right now. Kenji's got a good push going on in the top lane. There's also a decent push that's been established out of Timatopa. Now they're playing into that 1-3-1 that you were talking about a couple of minutes ago, and that is establishing good map control right now. The thing is, they then have to all pull away and try get into this team fight and set it up before, because if you try to walk into team fights late up against this Belfast Storm composition, it's just not going to go well.
Yeah, exactly, and they need to make the call now. Do we concede this third dragon and try to make a cross-map play? And it looks like that is going to be the case. Snepex potentially wrapping around behind this tier 2 turret onto Synapse. Sprinter does have the ultimate, doesn't have the flash, gets locked down with the Glacial Prison. Teleport going to be followed up here by Vixen as members of Belfast Storm are starting to wrap around and try to collapse on this one. It's a 1-for-1 for now. The hostile takeover is absolutely beautiful. No Dunlosi present in this team fight. Vixen's locking everyone down, but Paragon, they make the correct call. They go for the cross map, suck over everyone from Belfast Storm, bar the jungler, and take down 4 members whilst being in a gold deficit.
There we go, that's the Paragon way as well. Decide not to join around that Drake fight. Like you said, it was absolutely the right decision. They hadn't set up for it. They would have been late to the fight and likely would have lost another 3-4 members and the Drake in that fight. Instead, completely abandon it. Decide to take a fight as far away from Dunlosi as possible. And this is a really interesting dive as well. It takes a while to kill Synapse Sprinter, but the lockdown CC is insane. Synapse doesn't get a move until about 3 seconds into this fight, and very importantly, the tower falls early on too, allowing for the brilliant hostile takeover to come on through. Vixen, she nearly gets a couple of kills back. That initial kill onto Sack would have been enough to set off a chain reaction and potentially win that fight over for Belfast Storm. It doesn't happen. Paragon take 4 plus that tower and really get themselves back into this game. They've cut the gold deficit in half, and they've also bought themselves a ton of extra space around this top lane to play around. Very important when the Baron is now an objective on the map.
Yeah, and this game is just now broken into anyone's hands. Like, before that fight, you were confidently in the camp of Belfast Storm, should be able to try and close this one out. And Paragon, yes, it doesn't look right. Don't give up that third dragon, but with a composition like theirs, absolutely go for the cross-map play, as the arrow does hit Mr. Freeze. Holding that cleanse, I think he's confident that Baron will be able to keep him alive. And yeah, Paragon go for that play, and now it's they are still at a gold deficit, but it's not as big as 5k. You know, I think that's the key thing here, and I think they have a really good shot now at fighting back in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. They still need to find slightly trickier fights. You know, can't just step up straight up 5v5 quite yet. That being said, it is the third item now completed onto last. In fact, needs to be careful. Does at least get the blue buff, but is going to get jumped. I don't think you want to dive this one. Okay.
Ooh, TP coming in behind now. I think this one's going to be the Jax, as Kenji now finds a position onto Mr. Freeze. Does use the killer instinct well. The hostile takeover tags onto 3 as Dunlosi now chucked out to a low amount of HP. Mr. Freeze locked up by the Glacial Prison, but Snepex is going to be the one that has to flash away. Explosive cast onto 3, but only pushes back the utility champion Sack. Not concerned about being one-shot at this moment in time. Timo Topper goes up the wall as the Fate Sealed, almost catching onto everyone, but it's only onto 2. Knock up as well, landing onto Vixen and Mr. Freeze as they're both having to run away. Lash feeling confident to just fire arrows into the hearts of the Belfast Storm as he flashes over the wall. Kenji's going to pick up a kill onto Vixen, and Paragon somehow, someway, winning out on the team fight inside of their own jungle. This was started by Belfast Storm, and it's ended by Paragon as they take down 4 members. Mr. Freeze has to run, and this power belongs to Paragon.
What a team fight right there. I didn't know why Belfast were chasing quite so aggressively onto Snipex, a very mobile, tanky champion in the Sejuani. But they do, and Paragon recognize the error, pull the trigger, but it is not a clean team fight at all. You can see there are just multiple moments where Belfast look like they're going to be able to take down a champion and they have to flash over the wall, run away. This is very aggressive, jumping on top of Mr. Freeze. You get the cleanse and the flash away though, and now then Snipek goes in, has to jump back over the wall. Now Timatopa goes back in and is going to have to flash back over the wall, but this is a moment where I wish that we had those LEC graphics. I want to know how much damage Lasp did in this team fight, because watch this man. Watch him the whole way through. He is constantly auto-attacking. There are very few moments in this team fight where Lasp isn't actively auto-attacking a champion, flashing over this wall, super aggressive. Now Ket's exhausted, but doesn't matter, just constantly dealing the damage. Everybody else is being flashy, sure, but the constant applying of slows and all of the damage that this Ashe build brings is what wins this team fight right here for Paragon, and they get the Baron on top of it.
Yeah, they might as well look for a kill onto Synapse Sprinter. Has to use the cask onto the Sejuani, but the Glacial Prison is actually going to lock up Damlosi as the hostile takeover. It's going to lock people down where they stand. Last just going to go dominating, and like, rewind back to 10 minutes ago. Yeah. I would not imagine the game would be in this position off the back of Belfast Storm's sole point as well. But now they're going to have to defend this Baron buff. One member of Belfast Storm already down, as Paragon now going to get the go button to push down this mid lane turret. They're going to continue the push on the bot side, and Belfast Storm, they're going to have to defend Paragon on 2 fronts here.
Very tricky to do. They're lucky, at least, that they're not across 3 fronts. Timatoba, though, looking for this potential play onto Varen and Dunlossi, taking a ton of damage. Not going to be able to pick up the kill, but still, that should send Varen back to the base to at least get some health back. And that opens up this next Mountain Dragon. It would have been Soul if Belfast could step up to it. They're definitely not going to be able to do so. And this is a pretty easy second Drake of the game for Paragon right here, using this Baron buff to great effect. And there's going to be a 3rd item completed onto Timatopa very soon. It's going to be a 3rd item completed onto Kenji very soon. And that's the point at which this composition really comes online. Belfast Storm's composition still does tons of damage. They're still in a good spot, but sort of the peak of their composition, the absolute top of the mountain for them, has come and gone. They're on the way back down, though, just as Paragon are rising. We'll see, though, because I think the execution of the team fights is still going to be significantly more important than which of these compositions is a little bit stronger.
Exactly, and what last showed in that last fight on the Ashe is the kind of champion that really benefits off a player understanding fundamentals. It is literally about positioning, hitting, and running at the same time. And, well, when an Ashe looks like they are space gliding, it's not because that champion is mobile, it's because the player is playing that particular team fight incredibly. So, Lasp needs to make sure that he steps up like he did in that last team fight, because these fights are still difficult to approach, and you mentioned that perfectly. I still do think any small micro errors that Paragon make, and it could just be the end of the fight, so they still need to have their heads locked into this one if they want to carry this game through.
Yeah, and we've gotten to the point in this game where a mistake with a wave in the wrong spot could end the game pretty much immediately. It could spell the end very quickly, so you've got to be careful, got to keep these waves pushing out. Right now, the push is definitely in favor of Paragon. Don't have the Baron buff anymore, so they're going to have to do things the old-fashioned way, nice and slowly, and there's plenty of wave clear available to Belfast Storm. They don't need to be so worried about getting pushed in constantly. I think, if anything, Paragon really need to get those fight wins or the Baron buff going to be able to break down these towers. The next scripted opportunity for that is in 2 minutes' time, but you know, it'll be interesting to see if they wait that long or if someone's going to pull the trigger a little bit earlier on. For right now, Belfast, they seem contented to just sit back a little bit, although that being said, Synapse now steps up. I mean, there are 4 members around, and you would have caught potentially Snipex by himself, but again, the Sejuani is very tanky. I don't think that's the champion you really want to be trying to all-in upon.
Yeah, no, definitely not. We saw in that last fight, actually, Snipex went in first, took a bunch of damage, and was still able to flash away to safety and potentially get jumped here. But yeah, as you said, if you catch the Sejuani, probably don't want to follow through with that engage. Just absorbs so much of your time. And, well, a pretty decent push. I think the tier 2 turrets all broken down from Paragon with that Baron buff they secured as well. Dragon is topper, potentially looking for a fight from Varen. Varen is just getting shredded down by this Yone. Just walking away, and this is kind of the point we were making, right? Yone at some point will just completely outscale this Lissandra, and I think we've gone well past that point.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. You know, with the QSS and 3 items completed, you're in a good spot. You're in a good spot, Timatopa, right now. And more than anything, it's the Fate Sealed, right? That's the thing that I'm really looking for. You can deal a ton of damage, but you can also get that big knock-up onto multiple people and really set up the team fight for everybody else. Buy that space for last. Allow Kenji to get into the backline and Snipex to do his thing. Set everybody up for a massive hostile takeover, because if you can get that hostile takeover to land properly, Mr. Freeze will shred the rest of his team. Vixen will shred the rest of her team. It's an insane amount of damage you can turn onto your enemies, and it's much easier to land if you've grabbed everybody together with that Fate Sealed.
Yep. And, well, there's some objectives spawning soon, and one of that is the Purple Worm. And you can see Belfast Storm shoving in that mid-wave, making sure that they play the vision on this Baron. The key thing is Paragon, unfortunately for Belfast Storm, have identified that their 131 is indeed very powerful. And ever since then, honestly, that's where they've started to take control of this game. And see Kenji on the bottom side pressuring Synapse Sprinter. Gragas is a neutralizer, and Snapex potentially finding a catch onto Baron. Dunlosi around the corner. Timotopper has gone in, and the Fate Seal doesn't really catch anyone, but Mr. Freeze is just trying his best to kite away one singular Yone, but unsuccessfully, because actually Snapex, whoa, went way too far there. Last does get locked up by the Lissandra. The camera goes over to the bottom side as teleport was interrupted. I think Synapse Sprinter was able to cancel out Kenji's arrival into this team fight, and that is going to be potentially what Belfast Storm need to win this one out. So far, it is a 1-for-1 support for jungler. Donlosi does find the catch onto the Ashe, and Mr. Freeze picks up the shutdown on that one. Timotopper and Sack still staying alive. Synapse Sprinter, I'm seeing his health bar being chunked down very, very low as Kenji pushing on the side wave still. I think Belfast Storm might not feel confident to start this one up as Timotopper does get a lockup onto Vixen, but the shutdown as the Yone goes way too far forward. It's CC'd where he stands. The teleport is going to come in from, but the Jax continuing the push. You are essentially going to have to trade this Baron for potentially an inhibitor, as Kenji, with that teleport cancelled, is not going to be able to make his presence known in this fight. The Baron buff is going to go down. Sack gets tagged by the cast and is going to fall as well. Kenji does successfully break that mid lane inhibitor, so at the very least, Paragon do get something back, but they lost the fight massively. Last got caught, and potentially teleport coming in from the side. Vixen just gonna hold spells for now. Takes that blast cone over the wall.
Okay.
Yeah, bit delayed on that one. That's, well, actually, to be fair, there is a dragon to be played for, but what a crazy Baron fight, eh?
Yeah, insane Baron fight, and it just doesn't end. Timotopper does have teleport if you do want to keep fighting for this one. Obviously, it's going to be the soul if Belfast can pick it up. I don't think Paragon want to let that happen, but they're walking into a team fight late.
Yeah, they are walking in late. Timotopper's going to teleport onto the bottom side. Synapse Sprinter goes over the wall. The belly bop. Dragon already taken down. One shot by the Kaiser. The cast used onto Snipex. And last, as Belfast Storm, they seem to have gotten away with murder. Baron buff, team fight, Mountain Soul, all in one singular play.
And just everything goes wrong for them. You can see in the picture right now, there is a big push happening down mid lane, but this is the fight that makes it happen. And it looks so good at the very beginning. Everybody's able to land their big spells, but Snipex gets pulled in way too deep. And Varun once again flashes into the backline. I think this might be the end of the game, though.
Yeah, we're going back to live. The hostile takeover was used, but not to good effect. Sack tagged by the wind becomes lightning as the engage from Belfast Storm comes through. And the massive fade sealed from Timotopper is going to buy them some space. But Sack has already been taken down. Belfast Storm with blinking health bars have to just retreat now. They do have the Mountain Soul, so they are going to be difficult targets to break down. They do manage to get away. They broke down the inhibitor only, and it's just going to be a trade. They are going to have to lose this bot lane turret. I'm seeing minions breaking through that one, but I do think that is a decent trade if you're... Okay, it's staying alive. Don't mind me. Belfast Storm are going to be happy with that, and they're going to have this Baron as well for a few extra minutes to push through any other lanes they want to.
Yeah, I mean, really, really impressive stop from Paragon, but they are in a terrible spot right now. They were only just picking up kills earlier on, and that was before the point at which there was a Mountain Soul on Belfast Storm. Obviously, we are going to jump into a quick pause. Not ideal, but what crazy turnarounds. This game has been a roller coaster.
Yeah, it's been crazy, hasn't it? Like, I feel like it's been so back and forth. Usually at this point in the game, you'd see like a clear-cut favorite to win out the game. But even now, I have no idea how this is going to end. Like, is this going to end in 5 minutes' time? Is this going to end with the Elder Dragon? We have no clue because the fights are so back and forth. And I don't know whether this is the nature of the team compositions or the players actually playing, but it just feels like all these fights have like one or two micro errors in it that change the outcome of the fight. So it's so neck and neck. I have no idea how to call this.
Yeah, it's really tricky to decide who's going to be able to come out on top of this one. It feels like it should be Belfast Storm right now, obviously, but we've been proven wrong before, and the team fights from Paragon, they just have something about them. Still, very, very tricky position that they have put themselves in right here. Kenji potentially could get collapsed upon right now. Is pretty far forwards and surrounded by a lot of Belfast Storm members. Looks like they didn't know how much support he had, though, and so haven't decided to go all in on that one. The tier 1 tower in the bot lane finally does fall for Belfast. Going to be able to pick that one up is Synapse Sprinter. And honestly, Synapse has had a really impressive game. Despite the fact that, you know, the kill line score doesn't look that awesome, has just done so much around that final Soul Dragon fight. was just able
Yeah.
to keep Snipix over the wall. Snipix was not allowed to move. There was no chance of a steal. You know, just little things like that have been very impressive so far.
Yeah, and speaking of
Kenji.
impressive, this collapse onto Kenji is going to be really, really troublesome. Kenji has been creating so much pressure around the map. I think Kenji is spotting out Varren, and the rest of Belfast Storm know that
Cancelled.
he's trying to get a recall off. Varren able to cancel out that TP, and Kenji knows his fate. He's either going to have to go through, or he's going to have to drop. And now Kenji in the face of four members of Belfast Storm, and you can see Paragon just not in a position to cross-map any plays. He is taking a while to go down, and eventually does. Vixen goes into a killing spree. Paragon is able to at least push out the mid and bot waves, but they do have to let that Jax die.
And that is going to be an unfortunate end right there for Kenji. They go down, and I mean, there's no big objective spawning right now, so it's not exactly the end of the world that he dies, but you lose a ton for it, right? It could have just been a death, but instead you get your teleport cancelled. You lose out onto the golden. You know, a lot of things that you don't have anymore that you would have really liked to have kept available to you. We'll see if that comes back to bite Paragon later on. Right now, though, Belfast, they're going to be happy to just keep on pushing through this mid lane. That's a catch, potentially onto Vixen.
Yeah, arrow onto Vixen, but the Fate Sealed gets cancelled out by the Lissandra ultimate, going into the stasis as well. Vixen has just bought so much time for the rest of Belfast Storm to collapse. Last is going to get tagged by Synapse Sprinters. Absolute cast, and it looks like the fight going so heavily in favor of Belfast Storm. Shot down into the pocket of Timotopper, but he is all alone in that Dragon Pit with members of Belfast Storm looking and hunting for his head. Teleport being channeled into the base. Kenji just respawned and wasn't present in that fight, as the Gragas is going to make another beautiful cast onto the Ash, securing that potential team fight for Belfast Storm, as here comes the rest of the cavalry. Kenji now in threat, having to be the carry with the help of Sack. There is no Baron remaining, so those minions are just a regular wave, but there are four hungry individuals of Belfast Storm looking to end this game right here, right now. One Nexus turret is going to drop. Kenji doing what he can, but eventually is going to drop the bailout. Not enough. The cast sends Sack over into Narnia, because guess what? The Nexus is now exposed, and finally, Belfast Storm are going to end the game.
I decided to take a couple of extra seconds on that one. Almost a 40-minute game, that, with all of the twists and turns that you'd hope for from a game number one. Incredible performance right there out of Belfast Storm. The early game was brilliant, and the couple of catches and later game team fights that they were able to pull out were great. But that's not to say that it wasn't good out of Paragon either. They were able to pull themselves back into what felt like a definite lead during that mid-game. Such a back-and-forth matchup, and Belfast Storm are going to be very happy to have escaped with a win from that one.
Yeah, well, it was so back and forth. It felt like anyone could have won that at any point, and I think at the end, that Mountain Soul, the perfect soul for Belfast Storm, honestly, in this particular game. If there was one factor, it would, for me at least, be the fact that they were able to get that Mountain Soul. But, you know, it's a best of three, right? Best of three?
Best of three.
It's best of three. So for Paragon, it's not all over just yet. You still have this next game coming up, and I'm sure the analyst desk will be able to break that down. So we'll throw it to a break, as we'll be back soon.
Welcome back to the desk, everyone, and what a surprise. Everyone's prediction completely wrong. Belfast Storm picking up the win in game 1. What a surprise. Or was it, Zapdos?
I mean, there's two ways to take a look at this. People did say that Paragon have to lose the first game to win the series. You're still a Paragon believer. There's your thing. But no, we have to just say massive congratulations to Belfast Storm. And we judged them, thought they couldn't win their last series, won that. And now they are 1-0 up. Of course, early game didn't go as they wanted. That Ash did get to 6-1. I thought the game might be over, but a great play around the Lysandra. And of course, their jungler playing in that mid 2 versus 2 was able to start getting something rolling. And once we got to the late game team fights, this Ash just couldn't play.
I really, we saw the drafts, and I think especially both you two, and a little bit, I've got a Lysandra bias. That's very fair. It was sort of like, oh, Belfast have brought out something a little bit nice than we expected, and we got to see that sort of play out here, especially in the early game with a lot of suppression onto Timatopper. Now I am going to wait in my ear for production to come up, but the early game was very much about putting down Paragon and slowing them.
Yeah.
100%.
Melee, walk me through this one.
I mean, it was a little bit of a sticky situation. I think they knew pretty early on that they had to punish this Yone. And here, at first, it kind of looks like, ooh, maybe they are overstepping. Maybe they're getting something. It was a little bit of a sticky situation. But the fact that Yone stays alive for so long gives the opportunity here for Paragon to find an answer. However, First Blood going over to the side of Belfast Storm, but then they kind of overstay. And even with the Rel coming up, it kind of didn't really solve the situation anymore. And I think this first situation already kind of shows how it was the whole game. It was fight after fight, back and forth, and both sides had their highlight plays and then kind of lost it again. And it did revolve a lot around the AD carries for me as well.
It was lots of pounds of flesh. I think I don't remember if there's a single fight that was just like one-sided. If it
No.
involved more than 2 sets of people. We saw that sort of scale up and like the suppression of the mids make a difference. Zapdos, in this fight, you can tell us more about how the marksmen in this game sort of showed their dynamics.
Yeah, so the big thing you need to know before we get into this fight is that Ash is 6-1 in this situation. Absolutely powerful as all hell. Already got that first item, so Rift Hell gets started. And the whole thing is, let's make sure Ash can't play this game. So you see them try and engage Stu in here, trying to get onto Mr. Freeze as well, but just look at how much mobility he has. He cleanses Stu the start of it. Already see Kenji coming on the back line, steps away nicely for that, and he's finally able to free fire, while Ash on the opposite side hits one part of CC, and Ash is just dead. And that's the whole thing about this game is you can hit Kai'Sa with 2-3 amounts of CC, and she has ways to outplay it, while Ash, if that cleanses down, and if that flashes down, she's just dead.
Bit more vulnerable, and we didn't really see the Renata sort of come to play there. Just sort of propped up someone with the bailout in the front line. I think it was Kenji, and just sort of struggled through. It's not the full effectiveness. Merely the full effectiveness would come much, much later in the game. Take us through this later replay.
I mean, the whole game was, like I already said, an absolute back and forth. And in the early game, they found a really nice lead here on the Ashe as well. But then on top side here, they are kind of looking for something. You see that one person is completely alone, and immediately 4 members roam up here, and they are looking for the engage underneath the turret. However, even with the stun coming out, even with the damage coming out, everyone really wants to commit now. And the fact that you can stay alive for so long gives an opportunity here for the rest of Belfast Storm to move up as well, and then actually try and turn this fight around. And there's another really, really nice way to, use the Zhonya's in that situation for Vixen. The Zhonya's really has been kind of her pivotal thing that she can use. However, it kind of scaled out of control. And the damage output on the side of Paragon was really, really strong. However, it kind of fell off at some point. The Ashe was really strong. She was, I think, 13-1 at some point.
Yeah.
But I fear they didn't really end up finishing the game within their perfect time frame. And that allowed, obviously, the side of Belfast Storm to scale and scale and scale, and especially the Kai'Sa scaling out of control with that mobility that we already mentioned. That kind of took over the later team fights, as well as like bad positioning within the jungle, and lots of fights in the jungle where it's just really hard to be positioned well, to be mobile, especially on a champion like Ashe. And then you have a Kai'Sa that can just ult over the wall.
For sure.
So
She had the attack speed, she was diving in, she was getting the job done. And then when the Ashe did come online, as you mentioned, far too much still standing on the map. Like you kill 3 towers, it's like great. You still haven't gotten inhibited though. That's crazy. Bit of an update for game 2. SnapX is out for Paragon and Maru coming in. I believe some technical difficulties ailing SnapX tonight. So I hope your ISP starts to behave itself, if that is indeed the problem. I haven't read it that detailed. So welcome Maru for our second game. Paragon, fresh-faced, and they might be in their comfort zone now. What are we expecting? Are we expecting the revenge or maybe a Belfast quick victory? Zathos.
I think when you win the first game, confidence must be through the roof. You go from having a really bad early game, having that Ashe super fed, and turn in a team fight, super scrappy, messy, but you come on at the end of that, get yourself the victory. So I think we have to be looking towards a 2-0 for Belfast Storm. I think that would be the most likely candidate. But with Maru coming in, with the playstyle they have, they usually do counter what Belfast Storm wants to do. And if they ban away the Lissandra, maybe get away the Xing Zhao that has been so powerful, even the Kai'Sa, and they create a little bit more space for that AD carry, there is a big possibility where we could go the full 3 games.
All right, so we're messing with the approach. That's the objective. Melee, what's going to happen this game and what's the pivotal dynamic?
I mean, honestly, I have known Maru for a little longer, have watched him play for a little longer in a previous team I worked with. So I'm actually excited to see how he's going to show up here. I think it's going to be interesting if that, or like how that influences the team dynamic, because obviously the role has a huge impact on how the game is going to be played. I think Paragon put themselves in their comfort zone. I think they were like, you know what, if we lose first game, we're going to absolutely run over them in game 2 and 3. So I would love to see 1-1, like a tie here, so we can go to that third game. However, Belfast Storm, they have been showing up pretty strong. I think we underestimated them a little bit. Vixen, especially for me, had a very, very strong game here on that Lissandra. Felt very comfortable, especially within the early minutes of the game. So I'm really excited to see how they are going to show up and if they can do it again.
Yeah, fun fact. I've had the Space Groove Lissandra skin that Vixen was using there for nearly 1 year. It was my last Secret Santa gift from work.
You did call it a lava lamp.
It is. It's the lava lamp skin. It's
Yes,
10 out
you
of 10.
did.
Each different chroma, a different color. Fantastic. And Vixen showed up massively, shone brilliantly on the Rift that game. Something that I think Paragon are going to have to take into account. So both, I'm going to play a little bit of an imagination. We're going to play a bit of a game. We're coming in. Paragon, which side are you selecting? What are you setting up? Are we getting that Seraphine nice and early? Are we picking the Aurelion Sol? Give us a bit of flavor in the background.
For me, I think you just go scaling, because I was having in the back of my mind, and everything we talked about is how does Paragon like to play? They like to scale into the late game, have this meatball comp, and get to a position where even if the team wants to fight you, they just can't, because you are just way better than them with the champions that you've picked yourself. So you do exactly that. Get yourself the ASO you talked about. Get the Seraphine to have all the healing and shielding you want. Instead of Belfast Storm, and you get into this super scrappy, messy fight like we saw that went 30, almost 40 minutes. You're just going to win out.
Very quickly, Melee. We've had SnapX the enabler. Who's Maru? What's Maru bringing to the table right now?
I think Maru is a little bit of a similar type of thing. I think he can be a very great enabler as well. I hope to see him on something that can have a playmaking type of character. However, with the Viego band, I mean, someone did their homework here. So I guess we're not getting my first favorite pick for Maru, but it's going to be interesting for sure. I do, however, like the adaptation we're already seeing here. The Kai'Sa being banned as something that obviously was a very hard time for Paragon. At the same time, going with the Corki first pick. Corki is absolutely insanely broken at the moment.
Yep.
Like,
He's that proactive mid. He's up there. He's in the grill. And Synapse's Cassante evading the bans in on R1. Zapdos, what's the pair?
Man, quickly before, Corki can also go to the AD carry
that's
position.
exactly
Oh,
what
yeah.
I mean. ADC
I'm expecting the last like late game hyperscaler to come through. This
'Cause,
is team atop a 1v1 me, bro. Energy.
Us two play a little bit of bot lane too much, and that champion just blows you up. And talking about blowing up, Halo Blades Poppy does the exact same thing. Of course, flexible towards the mid, jungle, and even top lane. The only thing that I'm a little bit confused on is it's a little bit early. I'm guessing they're expecting Paragon to go for a little bit more dive options if you do pick it at this state. As Gwen, possibility here so far. Everybody's kind of keeping their cards to their chest, saying, hey, we don't want to show too much. We want to try and counter what you're doing.
Interesting. Hover with the Gwen. Very strong right now. And it is locked. So that is the approach from Paragon. Will maybe struggle coming through Poppy, but Gwen on the table.
Yeah, but Gwen at 2 items, Cassante, Poppy, 2 major tanks. Once you start getting a little bit of healing and the true damage from your snip, you are going to be blowing up in these team fights. And what did we ask for? We asked a team comp. When you get to this late game, you just destroy everybody. And so far, they're getting it.
Is Wukong one of Maru's specials, Melee? Is this the team fight we're looking for?
You don't look happy.
I mean, I'm unhappy because Viego was banned, and I would have loved to see the Maro Viego show. However, I feel like Wukong as well has that potential to just be in it to win it, and I can see that. I can see that happening. However, I do also like what Belfast Storm are drafting here. I feel like so far it's a good mix between engage, disengage, aggression, and question marks. I'm like, I wonder how they're going to finish this in the second rotation. Because obviously Poppy is a huge flex pick still. Can go towards jungle, can go towards support. Obviously won't go towards top lane. So that's just the biggest interesting point for me is like, where's Poppy going to go and what does that mean for the potential for bot side here?
I'm going to rescind my earlier statement that Corki is 1v1 fight me bro energy. Because Akali is far more I'm going to destroy you in the 1v1 energy. Vixen picking that one up here. Bans coming through for long range champions that don't interact with Poppy, that aren't in range frequently for Wukong. What are we going to see in these second round of picks if all of these long range carries for the hyper scaling for the late game go away?
Well, the big thing I'm still thinking about is a Seraphine option for Paragon. I know you still have Gwen towards top lane, likes to be that solo AP, but you can just have a very easy push in bot lane, get your support to roam around the map, try and help the Corki in that Akali lane. And one thing I'm thinking about, which I don't think Belfast Storm did, but just imagine that they picked the Poppy just so it couldn't get picked against them, so this Akali can just go absolutely buck wild in this game here. But second ban phase, Brawl makes very much sense. And what we talked about before with Belfast Storm being a team that likes to go for a 1-3-1, they already have such good components for that.
Ooh, this is very interesting because I can see an angle where you might actually go with Saya Rakan. Because they are like Saya is still
so
a
good.
very strong pick, right? And Rakan is a very, very strong, very mobile support pick, which obviously clears up the air and says Poppy's probably going towards jungle here, which, you know, could have been expected, but you never know. So I'm looking to see if this is actually going to be Saya Rakan, or if you pick that away.
Yeah, I think Paragon reading minds here. Zathos, what's coming last?
No, well, first of all, I really like the Zaya pick because Akali wants to always go into you. Poppy, you're able to ult away from that stun as well. Just everything that Belfast is throwing at you, you can say, no, I'm not going to take this. And of course, stopping the pair up. And you talk about last champion, has to be a support here, maybe something a little bit more defensive. TK springs to mind. I think it could be very big here. The possibility of the ultimate stop the Akali engage. I don't want to get bait. Okay. All right, I'm happy. I talked about it beforehand.
You called it last game. Yeah.
Rajana's so good. Rakan, stop the engage. Akali, stop the engage. Poppy, stop the engage. Everything Belfast Storm wants to do, Paragon is stopping.
Please don't pick Twitch. That's my all-time, like my every game I ban this champion because I do not for the life of me know how to play against Twitch. So this is like my go-to ban. Obviously, it is a possibility they will lock it in here, but I'm not sure how easy to execute this comp actually is. Because if I look at it just now on paper, Belfast Storm did a very great draft for me until that Twitch.
Well,
I was kind of thinking of like, ooh, what about Callista? What about anything but Twitch, basically? Like, I don't know. I
think if we put ourselves in Belfast's shoes, Mr. Freeze has been an absolute force of nature, drawing through the last 3 bans there. We wanted late game from both of these teams. We wanted the hyper scaling. I was like, this is a Caitlyn game. Like, it just is a Caitlyn game. You knock some plates down, you set up for the Akali. However, we asked for late game. So here we are with our late game hyper carry AD carry. I think the Twitch is going to have to do a lot of work to stay safe in sides, and he's going to be Poppy's best friend, as they're going to have to stand on top of each other to make sure that the Twitch is pretty safe. Zathos, any other takeaways?
I'm still in the 1-3-1 mindset, and of course the main champion that comes to mind is, imagine a Sivir. A Sivir instead of the Twitch gets to push out the lane, play around the Akali. You see the reactions on both sides. I would absolutely love that, but still, Twitch does kind of what you want to. I'm just going to be concerned about if Rakan wants to try roam to help with the Akali and Cassante later into the game. Is Twitch going to be safe? Because if Twitch ever shows up, you can just have Wukong say, okay, cool, I'm going to Cyclone on top of you. Let's get an ultimate from our jungler, and then sure, you're dead there. So a lot of difficulties for the Twitch to try and play. But I think there's going to be another 30 to 40 minute scrap fest. It's going to come down to one major team fight of, is Twitch able to open up and free fire late into the game, or is Paragon going to be able to shut it down with, of course, this Wukong?
Amelia, let's blow it out from the Twitch. Let's have a look. Composition to composition. Zapdos is still stuck on the 1-3-1, and I think that's pretty fair. I think Synapses Cassante sets up for it quite nicely. And who's going to fight this Akali? What's your overall take on the 2 compositions?
I mean, I gotta say, I think both of these compositions definitely are showing some team fight character, right? Like, both of these compositions want to go into these major team fights at a later point. I think positioning is going to be very interesting and crucial here, as it always is, obviously. But I think for a carry like the Twitch as well as the Xayah, your positioning is very important. And I would hate for Xayah to be in a position where she just has to use her ult defensively, because obviously you would want to use that as somewhat an engaged tool, or, which is something we haven't mentioned yet, obviously the feather pullback as well is something like a second smite when it comes to objective fights. So you do have a little bit of a advantage there, if you want to put it that way. I gotta say, it's really hard for me to pick, though. I don't see one winner if I just look at the draft, which is great, because I hate when I look at a draft and I'm like, oh, one team clearly won and it's already over.
So we're calling it close. And now
execution is like key. Execution is key.
Absolutely.
100%.
So I'm gonna make you guess anyway. What's gonna be the outcome? Are we going 2-0 Belfast, snappy, done in time for dinner? Or is it gonna be Paragon taking it all the way to the comfort zone?
I'm just, in my head, I'm thinking if Belfast can find the flanks with the Akali, with the Cassante, Twitch, and another, they're going to win. Do I believe they're going to do it? I think they will. For the first time in the past 2 streams I've been on here, I think Belfast Storm is going to 2-0. What a character arc so far.
All right, beware the curse, Belfast. Melee, who's it going to be?
Easy. I'll bet against it. Just so it's number 1, not cursed, and number 2, I do feel like the draft for Paragon is just easier to execute. So I think they can use that to their advantage for sure.
All right, there is a Poppy defending this Twitch. There's going to be a huge amount of work. Mr. Freeze is going to be some ice to see you gameplay tonight. You have to spray and pray and stay ice cold. I do think Paragon are going to have the advantage. They have so many diving units. Gwen coming forwards, the Wukong as well. It's going to be so much. I don't think Poppy on her own can get it covered. That rat is going to go splat, and I think it's going to be Paragon taking us up to game 3. What will come true It's execution based, as we've seen. The truth is, we're going to take a quick break as we are getting onto the Rift for game number 2. We'll be back in a few minutes with Bloxer and Sarvanex. See you in a mo.
I had some too. Don't worry. Oh, hello! Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the UKL. We're here, Game 2, Belfast Storm up against Paragon. We were talking quickly about the draft. We were both very, very confused about this Twitch pick. We almost said the draft was fantastic up until the Twitch pick. Maybe you could break this one down a little bit more.
The Twitch pick just doesn't feel like it works in this composition, right? Like, hang on. There might be some tomfoolery afoot right here. Last is gonna get chased here.
Last's gonna get chased by Don Lucy. We'll get that ward, but not the same effect as before. You don't get XP anymore for that early game ward or any ward. So, yeah. He's alive. Yeah. He's chilling.
Not much interesting from that. But yeah, the Twitch pick, right?
Yeah.
Why? It's such an odd one right here. There is obviously the chance that we're gonna talk about it like this, and then we're gonna get into a big team fight, and it gets a penta, and that's always the possibility with the Twitch now, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
However, it's so tricky to play out, and the composition doesn't feel particularly like it's built for it. But if it doesn't pop off, you are in a massive damage deficit. You're pairing it up alongside an Akali, who's a very different kind of carry, can't really provide anything to the Twitch, you know? You often like a big AP damage carry in the mid lane who can also provide some utility to a Twitch, like an Azir, like an Orianna. Those work a lot better alongside it. Instead, Vixen, she's going to be doing her own thing, going and trying to assassinate people. It's very interesting. At the same time, though, Mr. Freeze did have a very impressive performance in the last game on that Kai'Sa, so I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt right now and say that I'm intrigued to see what happens.
Yeah, very, very, very intrigued. I think Mr. Freeze probably has a game plan. I'm assuming this is why you R5 the Twitch. Twitch is, you know, sorry, not Twitch, but R5. It's the kind of pick you do where it's like, we pick this to win the draw for us. Yeah. You pick it last, you see everything on your screen, and then you lock in your champion. So there has to be a reason behind it. I think one thing I'm curious about is why they Twitch into Xayah Janna, because at least to my knowledge, Twitch doesn't have the best of times into Xayah, so yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait and see. Like you said, there is obviously that chance Twitch just drops a pentakill for no reason. There's knock up onto 2 from Varen, and last takes a big chunk of damage, but the Feathers is going to lock down Varen where he stands. Don Lucy is coming around, and potential stun against the wall. The flash is very, very early, but the Janna keeping that Xayah alive, and actually we'll be able to get away. They have to drop both summoner spells onto the Xayah, and actually even going to miss out on this entire minion wave. So not the best result, and they might be looking for a second go at this one. Sack understanding and reading that well, moving away from that tower, and they will just have to concede this wave.
Yeah, as much as the 2v2 lane matchup might not be the strongest overall, for this Belfast Storm bot lane, the level 1 at least is plenty good. Yeah. You can see all of that aggression. Having to just sit so far back was last been sacked. They weren't actually allowed to step up to the minion waves at all at that point. Instead, they are going to lose everything. And yeah, last with
solo
no
kill.
Flash. What?
Solo kill in mid lane. Vixen's dead.
Oh boy. And this was another thing that we were wondering about, right? Vixen has been on RE duty for weeks and weeks at this point. Now gets the Akali, something you really need to pop off on, and unfortunately, yeah, Timothopa knows this matchup, and this champion is disgusting at the moment. The Corki is so strong. Do you?
Yeah, gank in the top side as well. No. Maru subbing in and almost dropping down to this top lane gank. And speaking of the mid lane matchup, don't know if anyone knows, but Corki Q actually reveals Akali Shroud. A pretty bad matchup for the Akali in that.
Plus, it's busted. Yeah, so it was just a flash forwards, right? It was just a flash forwards out of Timothopa to get that kill. And it doesn't change this lane matchup too much for the minute. Vixen's still going to be the one being the aggressor in most situations, trying to push on forwards. But yeah, it's not the easiest one to play out. Like you said, Maru subbing in. So much to talk about in this game. So many interesting facets to it. Jumps in, jumps straight onto this Wukong, and gets aggressive immediately. They don't actually pull off that top lane dive, but it does open out a pretty big CS gap in that top lane. To be honest, there's some big CS gaps across the map, considering how early on it is.
Yeah, very big CS gaps. I'm actually curious as to how Maru actually ended up falling behind, because when we saw Don Lucy go for that bot lane dive, we saw Maru go into Don Lucy's top quadrant and just take everything, and off the back of that, actually ends up in a CS deficit to Don Lucy. So, just actually interested to know how that broke out and happened. But yeah, CS deficits everywhere. There's not one team in favor of this, but obviously Paragon with the gold lead after the first blood. So yeah, I'm curious to see, do you think Mr. Freeze is running AP Twitch this game?
I mean, surely not. You'd be so lacking in the damage department at that point. And you've also got PTA, so I don't think so. But, you know, crazier things have happened. We've already got the Twitch in this game, so why not? It could go a little bit wilder. Timatopa does get a little bit jumped right there by the Unlossy, but it's just going to spot that one out. Chucks a ward down to make sure that isn't going to be a repeat gamp. Mario is in the area, but I don't know. It's pretty hard to set yourself up for ganks as a Wukong pre-level 6. You really don't have that CC to make it happen.
Yeah, I'm going to try to go for it. There's actually
Yeah.
zero vision set up by the bot lane of Belfast Storm. So
Yeah.
Mr. Freeze and Varen have no idea that Maru is here. Knock up onto the Wukong, and Varen might have just played this one absolutely beautifully. Textbook Rakan play there, making sure that Twitch gets untouched. And I have to say that CS, the XP lead between the AD carries is absolutely huge. Dunlosi now arriving to the 3v3, but Maru half HP. Dunlosi very, very healthy right now. The clone is going to be used. The knock up onto the Xayah as Maru does have to flash. And with that Doran's ring, the burn is quite intense. The Janna shield gonna keep him alive momentarily and does indeed
How much health is that?
survive. And,
Oh my lord, that is basically no HP.
yeah. Clutch Janna shield coming out from Sack, and
Yep.
well, we'll get away from that, but this is extra time for the Twitch to scale up and maybe a stroke of genius in this R5 pick.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the way that this one is being played out right now from Belfast Storm is incredibly impressive. Every single time somebody tries to play in this bot lane, they lose a summoner spell, right? That's now the flash gone from Maru. It's pretty big, and you can see there is about 200 gold lead, 300 or so between the ADCs at the moment. It's not the biggest gap that we can see, but still, it is significant enough, and if you can continue pushing that advantage further and further, the Twitch can be such a nightmare to try to deal with in and amongst these big, messy team fights that we're going to have later on. For the minute, though, it looks like Paragon, they're just going to content themselves with picking up these grubs. Doesn't look like Dunlossi's going to jump in to try to steal another one of these away, and instead all three are going to be going over to Paragon. They do have a great composition for pushing towers once they can access them, so that is going to make this a little bit stronger still.
Yeah, exactly. I was just literally about to say the grubs really benefits Paragon's team composition on the side lanes. The Gwen will be able to push through a lot. I think Kenji in the last game on the Jax showed he does have the eye for going for these split push angles, and if he's going to get grubs on the Gwen, it's going to be a good angle for them to play with that. Belfast Storm, of course, notify that they do have to lose out on that initial grubs take, and so go on the Infernal Dragon on the other side of the map. I think this does also, weirdly enough, benefit Belfast Storm really well. They do have a composition that likes to fight, so getting Drakes into their pocket early on is a good look for them.
Especially an Infernal Drake. They're going to be very happy to have picked that one up for themselves. We have got level 6s across the board at this point. Okay.
Yeah, all out being used by Synapse Sprinter. Kenji almost dropping Maru just in time to pop the Cyclone and get the knock off into the Cassante. Synapse Sprinter does eventually fall down as he gets bonked in the head by Maru. And welcome to the series, because he's got himself a kill.
Or if I'm Synapse, I'm pretty mad about that one. Despite the fact that Kenji only really went forwards in that situation because he knew that he had Maru on the way, it still feels bad because you are so close to picking up that kill and unfortunately just isn't able to do so. That does give over a kill to Maru. Very important when you're playing a champion like this Wukong. Falling behind feels so rough on this champion, but if you can get a couple of kills, keep yourself ahead of that curve, can be a massive threat to squishy backline champions like the Twitch is going to be later on.
Yeah, exactly. Scales very well. Potential tower dive happening in the bot side, but
And don't go for it. I was worried there for a second. I think it would have been risky to have gone for, but since when did Paragon care?
yeah, true. Sure is Vixen getting bullied off her own turret in the mid lane here. Looks like the
30 CS
Akali
gap.
struggling. I think the Akali was picked into the Corki as well,
Yep.
so struggling a lot in the counter matchup or the personal counter matchup, and I think Timatopa very, very far ahead in the mid lane. That's a CS lead plus a solo kill as well, so
Yes.
very ahead.
Very far ahead at the moment, and it was a B1 Corki, so you knew it was there from the very beginnings of this draft. Vixen chose to take the Akali into it, not working out so far. Yep, that is a big gap, about 900 gold, which, considering we're not even 10 minutes into this game, is insane. That's a lot of a gap
I mean,
right now.
1,000 gold lead is big. 20 minutes, 15 minutes, and
Yeah.
20 minutes, right?
10
and
minutes
we're
in?
10 minutes into the game, so that is massive.
Absolutely, and We'll see how that manifests in the actual team fights, because right now it just means you're able to constantly bully forwards onto Vixen. Doesn't have a flash at the moment, has had to use the TP to get back to lane. Very good spot. Timotopper has the flash, has the teleport available. But once we get to these skirmishes, that's where Corkis are really strong. And now you're going to be coming out of lane in an even stronger position as well. Just a very good look so far from Timotopper. You know, that key player that we were highlighting for Paragon right now. Maru is hanging around the mid lane. Is going to be spotted though, so unlikely to be able to get a gank off onto the mid lane right here. Still is just going to allow Timotopper to push this mid lane wave in. Could potentially go for another reset right now. There aren't too many objectives on the board. There are going to be a second set of grubs though, so that might potentially be the play for Paragon here.
Yeah, definitely so. And as we already discussed, the Gwen going to utilize 6 grubs extremely effectively. And the way this matchup works is at some point the Gwen should just be able to overpower the Cassante. But it looks like Belfast Storm might be looking for the cross map onto the bot side of Paragon. Laft has no idea this is happening. The Featherstorm used already. The Jan ultimate is
the
perfect
monsoon.
as the teleport is being channeled to provide some extra protection. And yes, Sack played that beautifully. Just got all the threats off of the Xayah, and they all get out scot-free. Well, gonna have to use the ultimate and the flash, but I think you're not too unhappy with that.
Yeah, Timotopper instantly teleporting bot lane, but actually wasn't needed. Now they're going to make a gank happen onto the mid lane. Vixen should just be able to walk this one away. But I don't think Timotopper expected Sack to play that one so well, because
Yeah.
they just neutralize the threat. That is what the Janna is so good at doing, just stopping the threat in its tracks. And yeah, you lose the flash on last, like you said, not ideal, and that play will work again if they try it, but still, it was good to prevent it then. They may be getting dove.
Oh my god, they're going for round 2. Dunlosi not wasting any time, just flashes over the wall, and Mr. Freeze will pick up a kill on the Twitch. They have to concede 6 grubbers on the other side of the map, but at least they make that flash go punish the Sack, trying to pull the wave over to set up a decent wave state, but I think is just going to have to suicide underneath this turret as multiple members of Belfast Storm were coming in for the chase and does have to drop. Fortunately, doesn't give over any gold. That's kind of how it works with suicides. And, well, bot lane for Paragon seems to be the trouble point in this particular game.
Absolutely, it does. It was the much better side of the map for Paragon in game 1, but you know, they weren't able to win through that, so potentially just leaving the bot lane to do their own thing. Considering what has happened so far, there's a decent gap. I mean, that is going to be that first item completed for Mr. Freeze. Has a collector now, so he's in a very strong position. But at the same time, the rest of the map's okay. You know, you've got a solo kill and a decent gap in the mid lane. Maru's doing well. Kenji's having a good time. They're actually up in gold overall. So I don't think Paragon are going to be overly worried at the moment about what has happened in the bot lane. But they do have to be careful to not allow it to continually get worse. Because like we've been saying with the Twitch, if you let it really run away with things in the early game, the minute that you actually get to these team fights, you can just pop that ulti and shred through everybody. And it makes playing this one out far too tricky for Paragon. They need to stem the bleeding now and not keep making it worse.
Yeah, Collector already completed for Mr. Freeze, so going to have some big execute damage with that item. Dragon started up by Donlosi. It's a singular Poppy, so doesn't finish this off as quick as other champions. Vixen getting collapsed potentially by Maru and a Timotopper as this approach from Belfast Storm. Mr. Freeze going to open up onto Sack. Varen misses out on that engage as Sack playing this Janna extremely well, and the Cyclone comes in. Dunlosi is able to secure the smite, and Maru is just gliding across. Vixen finishes him off with the perfect execution. 1 for 1 for now, and if Belfast Storm get away with this one, they will win out on the trade, considering Dunlosi won the smite fight in the pit.
Oh, no.
Mr. Freeze now opening up onto Sack. Last trying to get some feathers in. That's a 2-man route. Last doing what he can, but playing onto melee range, and I think this is favoring the Twitch. The Featherstorm being used. Mr. Freeze is going to get the kill. Way too close for the Xayah into the Twitch Rakan, and even a solo kill for a Cassante into a Gwen on the top side, and suddenly everything on the side of Paragon starts collapsing as Belfast Storm come up the victors off this play.
It's a disaster right there for Paragon. Everything goes wrong. You manage to get yourself 1 kill in that exchange, but you don't steal away the dragon. You lose the solo kill top lane, and Timotopper might now get taken out in a 1v1 by Vixen. Oh no!
Yeah, Timotopper 1 HP, so is Vixen, so they both will just walk away from each other in the most respectful manner, but there is a Dunlosi here, and the shutdown goes into the hands of the Poppy. They Timotopper, I think, did get that mid lane turret, but does have to die.
Once again, these two teams really are showing out. It's such a great matchup. Very explosive the whole way through. And this is what happens with the solo kill. Kenji just keeps getting pulled back, but really doesn't want to concede this wave. Doesn't want to fall even further behind, potentially lose the whole tower. But it just allows Synapse to just run him down. Kasante, so tanky, does so much damage at this point in the game, and is able to pick up that solo kill. And now, Kenji might be getting jumped again, but this time by the bot lane.
Yeah, getting jumped on as Varant gonna pop the quickness, but sees that teleport and with beautiful discipline gets away from that one. Under no threat. The TP was used, and Don Lucy even securing that Rift Herald. It's gonna have to maybe try find a tricky way out of here. There's no flashes. Members of Belfast Storm start collapsing into the Dragon Pit, or the Baron Pit rather. Vixen does go in with the R1, and now trying to look for an assassination as the knock-up from Baron is catching everyone. Vixen takes down the Gwen. The clone has to be used defensively as Marin needs to get himself out of there. Dunlosi sprints away with the W. The Steadfast Present provides so much move speed, and Belfast Storm again trading positively, not losing anyone in the process.
Oh yeah, you know that your team's in a good spot when you can sit in the Baron Pit flashless and just wait for your team to come join you, help out with the team fight. And again, Paragon get a ton of members of Belfast low, but it doesn't matter. They're not able to pick up those key kills to really get the team fight going. Also, we just saw Mr. Freeze pick up that tower in the top lane as well. And this game, it's going from bad to worse right now for Paragon. Things just not working out. They're down by almost 3,000 gold now at this point. You can see that first item now completed onto Vixen, onto Mr. Freeze. Everybody pretty much got that first one done, and now well on the way to the second. Nothing particularly interesting in what the items are. I guess confirmation that it is not going to be the AP version of the Twitch, which is what we were hoping for, right? You really don't need it in this game. Vixen is going to be more than enough of the magic damage. Everything else, though, is just showing how far ahead Belfast are.
Oh, Timotopper now under threat. There's two people in the bottom side. Dunlosey's going to pick up the kill. Kenji trying to avenge his fallen brother, but might be getting killed in his own right, as Kenji has just teleported into the bottom lane to just die once again. And now the kill score, the gold lead, everything gets increased from bad to worst, as you said. Varun potentially walking too aggressively, but that Rakan is as slippery as you can get and is absolutely
so annoying. Trying to chase a Rakan. It's like chasing a Rakan or a Pike, I think, are one of the two most miserable things you can try to do in League of Legends. It's just not going to work. We do see the Rift Herald charge in, gets a decent chunk of damage onto this mid lane tower. Not going to be any more from it right now, as we do watch the bot lane again. The stun was just missed. Timotopper doesn't get stunned up, but it doesn't matter. Still going to have more than enough damage to take him down. And then Kenji ends up teleporting into what is a pretty dire situation already. And just isn't going to be able to get anything done right here. Does go down 2 kills over to Belfast. And man, they are really running away with this one.
They really are, and you can kind of see the nature of the plays being made. Belfast Storm look like they're proactively looking for these plays, whereas Paragon are reacting to these plays. Hence why Kenji's TP was really late, because you're reacting to something. And Paragon, it just looks like they're just waiting to scale, whereas Belfast Storm with this Twitch, and we were questioning it, including the desk, and we were wondering, well, what the functionality behind this Twitch is, but now I'm seeing it. You play it like an assassin, and Paragon have no idea what hit them once he opens up. Varun potentially getting caught. Actually, Timotopper starting to do a wealth amount of damage, but how much more can you really do? As it looks like Mr. Freeze feeling confident to just open up onto Lasp and Sack. The Featherstorm already used, as Sack is just going to get one shot where he stands. The Collector doing the work for the Twitch. They're even going to be able to pick up this dragon. I think Maru potentially hiding around, looking for a smite steal. Going to get that blue trinket into the Dragon Pit. Maybe he can steal this one away. But that's as good as he is going to be able to do. Can he get in there? The Steadfast Presence is going to interrupt that W from the Wukong. The Hextech Drake is locked in, the Soul Point. And now Belfast Storm, they're slowly starting to dominate this game as Mr. Freeze opening up onto Timotopper as well, as the Corki is going to drop. And just as we said, this Twitch is not an ADC. It's a bloody assassin, and he's assassinating everyone on the map of Paragon.
Absolutely is. It's just the combo assassins between the mid and the bot lane as the fight continues. Belfast Storm are low though.
Yeah, Paragon looking to trade this one back. A shutdown does go into the hands of Kenji. Cyanide Sprinter has to try to sprint away from this one. Vixen on the bottom side, breaking down some turrets. That's the tier 2, 700 gold into the pocket of the Akali. So they do trade something back. It's a 1-for-1 in the actual fight itself, as Paragon potentially even feeling confident to start up this Baron. It does get started up. Baron is going to be able to get a ward into this to get the information to the rest of his team. Mr. Freeze, very, very low HP, but does have both summoner spells to play with. Vixen has the perfect execution as well. Timotopper is going to TP into this fight. Don Losi, the jungler of Belfast Storm, not present for this one. Mr. Freeze has healed back some amount of HP and trying to zone out Vixen here. The key target is going to be Vixen. Vixen goes into the stasis as well. Baron not yet found an engage. He's going to get the knock up onto Kenji as Mr. Freeze goes unstoppable. Cyanide Sprinter on the back line. Vixen is able to assassinate someone as well. Timotopper doing what he can, does finish off the Twitch, and now Baron and Vixen doing what they can to stop the Baron, but now they need to make sure they don't give up anything else because the Corki starting to do a lot of damage. Don Losi now arriving to the scene, and his last sack, Timotopper all have to try to run away. The monsoon is good, dodging away from the quickness, but Baron is starting to catch everyone. The Poppy still staying tanky. The E from Vixen is not going to land to Dunlosi, and Baron having to play this one slowly. You can see Timotopper playing and kiting this one immaculately. Sack keeping both these marksmen alive, but now getting covered up by Vixen. Vixen is going to drop to Timotopper, and somehow Paragon have just started winning this team fight out of absolutely nowhere as the health bars were too low, and well, I'll let you take this one.
I think calling this a one-team fight is a little bit too harsh. This is a mess of a team fight. Nobody really wins this one. It's a bit of a Hail Mary right here for Paragon. They have to go for it. Trying to pick up the Baron right here while Donlossi is dead. It makes sense. It's a good idea. I thought in this moment, this was going to be Mr. Freeze picking up that pentakill that we joked about right at the very start. 3 low health bars. He's already got the first 2 kills, but he does go down. And then the chase just continues. Hang on.
I've seen Reckless do this, but I think this time you're absolutely fine to do so. As
He nearly got that.
That Twitch is very strong, methinks.
That's 2 items. That's a 2-item Twitch. That is not a lot of items. Obviously, for this point in the game, he's in a very strong position, but that's not a ridiculous amount of items all out. Wait, so 4.5 item Twitch, and what can we do about it? This is him with tons of scaling left to go.
Well, he is 2 levels ahead, right? And it goes back to that massive wave that last missed out on early on into the laning phase. And it's kind of added up to a position now where Mr. Freeze is just so far ahead. He's miles ahead on CS. He does so much damage on the Twitch. And, yeah, as you said, this only gets worse from this point onwards.
Yeah, it does not get better for a while right here. Paragon have at least shown that they can win out on team fights if they are tricky with it. Okay, they can take an even fight if they're pretty tricky with it and they don't have Donlossi in the fight, but I think once you have all available pieces ready to go, Belfast are going to begin winning these fights again. We're also on pace for a very early Soul if Belfast want it. We've only got a minute until the next Drake is going to be spawning. Obviously, the Baron is still up. That was not taken by Paragon, so he could end up with a split situation. Belfast in a very nice spot where they don't care which one they get, really. Baron, awesome. Drake, awesome. Both of those are going to give you a ton. I think that the Hextech Drake is going to be massive for these team fights as well. Getting that extra damage and slowdown is very helpful for Belfast.
Yep, exactly. And they're going to move their way over to this dragon. If they get their soul, as you just described, it's going to be so difficult for Paragon to even contest this game. Put Vixen on the top side, waiting for that teleport coming up very, very soon. Mr. Freeze. If Mr. Freeze opens up onto the Xayah, we've seen how quick it is for him to just explode this AD carry on the other side, and this dragon fight is going to be extremely important. And it looks like the vision setup very good for Paragon, as Vixen is actually not even going to play the teleport, maneuvering over before that even starts. And Baron in a very tricky situation, but it is a Rakan, so should be able to be fine. Celestial opposition does get procced. Kenji staying in the shadows, the fog of war benefiting Paragon for now, as that Scuttle Crab in the river is actually going to go down, so extra vision for Belfast Storm does get negated here. It's going to be a tricky approach. Mr. Freeze does go into the invisible. Form as the keeper's verdict is just going to knock away the Wukong already. Kenji does have a flank onto Don Larcy, but the fight is just breaking out on the bottom side of the jungle. And look who's down. The Corki is finished off. Vixen's going to get an assassination. Mr. Freeze as well does have to die, but it's going to be a positive trade as the double kill locked in for Vixen. Baron trying to get his access into the fight, knocking up anyone he can. Cyanide Sprinter very, very tanky. The Jana Tornado knocks up 4 and just stops that engage. And now Belfast Storm, they're going to put their attention over to this Hextech Dragon. Maru still alive, doesn't need to steal this one immaculately, has been stopped multiple times by Don Mercy in his approach. Kenji hanging around the side, waiting for that ultimate to come back off cooldown, was using that fight, but Gwen ulti has a very, very short cooldown. The needlework does so much work, but a Hex Flash over the wall from Don Mercy is going to catch Kenji sleeping as he gets knocked against the wall, stunned where he stands and finished off. Cyanide Sprinter now zoning out the jungler, and he's not going to find access into this dragon because I think the Hextech soul does belong to Belfast Storm. Maru gonna get finished off by Synapse as they get blast coned over to safety as well. Now Timotopper and Sack have to get the evacuation going as Timotopper does have to flash. Donlosi misses out on the stun. Mr. Freeze has respawned, and if the Corki dies here, this could just be a free Baron into the pocket of Belfast Storm.
And that is gonna be the biggest fight of this game so far. Belfast, they take it not cleanly, but there were some amazing moments right there. That was also a fight not played with Mr. Freeze. That's a ton of your damage just gone, but it doesn't matter. That flash specifically out of Dunlosi to catch Kenji out was the key, because otherwise, that was actually a good job out of the 3-man from Paragon to stall that Drake out. They're buying a lot of time, could have stalled things out long enough for Timotopper to come and teleport in, and with that being a freshly based Corki and everything, could potentially have been a takeaway, delay the game out further, make it that much trickier for Belfast to stop this, to take this game over. But no. Instead, Belfast, they call time, decide to just win out on that fight. Very impressive. And the fight is super split at the very beginning. Kenji ends up getting chased around, having to go around the long way. And there's a ton of damage that goes down, but it's the fact that Timotopper insta-dies that means you're just losing out on so much of what you need to play around. Lasp then also going down, and that's your 2 main carries gone.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of what you said. And that breakdown of what Donnosi did to catch Kenji was so important, because that's where the play goes from a teamfight win into a Hextech Soul plus a Baron. That was the biggest difference maker. And these fights have these small micro interactions that are changing the tide into the pocket of Belfast Storm. And now Paragon, they're in the face of a Hextech Soul and a Baron buff. Synapse Sprinter deployed on the bottom side of the map to try and push this one through. You could see Paragon trying to look for a fight whilst the Cassante is pushing, but they just cannot. And now with a numbers disadvantage and a flank from the Cassante, this is a precarious situation for Belfast Storm. The Feather Storm already used, and Kenji going to be the focus. He hasn't been able to get much done on the Gwen this game. Donlosi over the wall as well. Doesn't have the flash as it was used earlier on. Hex Flash available, but did not get used as ultimates expended. The Cyclone, the Needlework, the Feather Storm, and the Monsoon all down as Belfast Storm look to push through this mid lane turret with Synapse Sprinter on another beautiful flank, and the knockup's gonna come through with Donlosi picking up the first kill of the team fight. The turret still standing strong. Vixen taking up a lot of turret damage and does actually survive. And Belfast Storm pick up that kill, break down that turret, and this game might not have that much left in it.
No, it really might not. I mean, look at the bases coming through right here. Vixen might be able to complete, not quite going to be able to complete that death cap, but that would have been what feels like the nail in the coffin right here. You don't crack the base on that play, but you do break the spirits right here of Paragon. You're able to kill them even when they start trying to get their fights going. Now going to look for a push through the top lane. Mid lane already has a push going. Bot lane, they are going to sacrifice, not looking to push that one through right now, but it at least draws Kenji away. Has a teleport available if another fight breaks out, and I think another fight will break out. These teams seem basically incapable of leaving each other alone. Even when it's a questionable fight, right? They just want to go, 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 but so far it has been benefiting Belfast pretty much all series long.
Yeah, it really has, and they're going to push through this top lane turret, Kenji on the bottom side, but that's only a tier 1, so really what are you getting in terms of what are you giving? They're playing a 4-1 setup here with Synapse Sprinter on the mid wave. Kenji does have that TP if anything is to break out. Maru trying to do what he can. really hasn't been that useful on the Wukong subbing into this last game. That bot lane, that top lane turret, sorry, is very low HP, almost finished off, and Gage might be coming in as it's just a slow and steady game for now. But Kenji actually being left on the bottom side for a minute too long.
Time.
And there's actually broken down 2 turrets, potentially on the inhibitor turret as well.
Yeah, I mean, the wave clear out of Paragon is pretty good. Even with those Baron-empowered minions, they were able to slow the push for quite a while. It is finally going to break into the base. You are going to lose this top lane inhibitor. Maybe the fight too.
Gets the Keeper's Verdict, knocked off onto last as the fight is just breaking out. Nice split push, but you're going to need to get back to the rest of your team as 2 people have already died.
Kenji?
Vixen maybe
And
have
teleport's
gone
not gonna
too
go
far, and the Akali is going to drop. Kenji's just going to keep going. I think they were confident that Paragon were able to hold down the fort and might just be going for the backdoor end. It is...
Oh
my God,
he
he's gonna
dies!
die for the
Timotopper!
Timotopper into the base! He's gone for the end! No teleport! Psyduck Princess too late! And somehow Paragon have won this game out of absolutely nowhere!
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
That is crazy. That's crazy.
What?
I mean, I don't really have words to describe what's just happened because I remember calling that Gwen split push was like, oh, that's pretty harmless.
Yeah.
But
it
then
got a tier 1. Whoops. Oh, it got a tier 2. It's getting a tier 3. Now I'm beginning to watch it. Taking the inhibitor, okay. It's on the Nexus towers, right?
Yeah, you see the Gwen pushing Nexus towers, and you're like, no one's recalling yet.
The teleport onto the tower being taken
Yeah.
lost that game, right? Like, it's very rare that you can look at a single thing and go, this is what lost you the game. But when you're in the enemy base, taking things down, and if you just teleport to the other tower, you get back, you defend it, you lose a lot, the game's a little bit iffy, but instead...
I don't know anything about this game anymore. I've admitted it. I've lost everything. Anyway, I mean, I'm sure we'll leave it to the beautiful analyst S to break this one down, as I don't think that concluded the way we imagined. So, yeah, we'll throw to a quick break, and when we return, they'll explain more.
Game 3.
All right. Unfortunately, that back door has taken out internet supply across much of the UK. The force of the magnitude of the earthquake that Kenji and Tabletop have just executed. Melee, a little bit of Four Nations lore. Our most famous backdoor player, who's pulled this off multiple times, is called Synapse Sprinter. And you may notice he's just been a victim of his own crimes.
I see. I gotta admit that hurt to watch. Like, I can't even say, ooh, that was hype. Like, no, that hurt. And I wish to never see it again. But I'm glad we're seeing someone else again.
Welcome back, Zapdos. It's a miracle. You're alive.
So, let me talk about this real quick. 2 times in a row, me and Belfast Storm, we have a feud going on at this point. You know, they DM me after I said they won't win the 2-0. Of course, they won last time to get into this situation. And then I bet against, I bet for them here. And then somehow my internet breaks. I don't want to say anything, but there might be some conspiracy theories here going on. But happy to be back. And I'm not happy to talk about that game.
I will let everyone know that Zapdos has actually got the pen in his hand and the force of will behind him. Because as soon as he said, like, yeah, 2-0, they've got this, I'm feeling confident. There was this tier 3 that got knocked down, and then
I don't know
a
what
Nexus
happened.
tower just went down. It's crazy the way the Nexus fell right after.
The one time I bet for Belfast to actually win a game, they lose it. Every single time I bet against them, they win it, and I don't know what to do anymore. Because am I cursing them? Am I their savior? To be honest, it's probably just goddamn luck.
It's rough stuff. That's what it is. Melee, we got our first replay ready for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's been actually a pretty one-sided game in my opinion, right? Like, for the longest time, it looked like, they've had it in the bag, and it started pretty early on. Like, we had a situation in minute 3 on bot lane where there was another, like, little try to dive someone, and we weren't sure if that had a big impact. But then we're going further into the game, and suddenly this is happening. So the Herald is being taken here, and notice how the Herald is almost already gone. Like, Herald is gone, the eye has been picked up, there's no reason to look for a fight here. However, everyone collectively decides, you know what, let's just go in. And Poppy Ult is the first thing coming out here, obviously giving a little bit of a delay on the side of positioning for Paragon here. But then just the amount of mobility and damage output on the side of Belfast Storm forces the enemy to just, disengage and say, you know what, let's actually not fight here, because no one, even at that point, and that was minute 16, had an actual chance at killing anybody. And that's how it continued.
Yeah, the presence coming forward, it's absolutely massive. It would sort of set the tone for the game to come, shall we say? Zathos, Mr. Freeze, had a bit of a moment here. As
he had
we
a
load
rough
up this
moment.
next clip, it's it was ice cold. Ice cold.
I mean, there's not really much to say on this moment. It's just a rat moment. Paragon, of course, at the end of the game with the rats themselves, but for the rest of the game, Mr. Freeze absolutely popped off. Him doing so well in the early game, having such a significant lead. Just let him do this. Run forward, hit your auto attack, Shada. You can't heal over this. I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to kill again and again, because they get themselves dragon, and you think that's going to be it for this Twitch god. No. Not it. He does it once. He comes straight back towards the mid lane. Of course, getting a little bit of help from his Rakan later on. But it's just a fantastic play of baiting the first time. Of course, they notice it. And then yet again afterwards, being able to find another kill. So how did they lose? How could they do that and lose?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because actually I feel like at this point they were running all over the map, getting advantages everywhere. Even with the Nash situations and stuff, like, they had such a good, tempo as well on the map. I feel like they play very well around their tempo, as we're probably going to see in this next replay. Because there was this situation around Nash where it didn't look too bad at first. I kind of was like, okay, maybe that's a situation to turn it, but we're jumping right into the end here, actually. And I'm not very happy that I have to look at this, but I guess I'll just take one
You-
for the
you've
team and
called
talk
it
you through
now.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so yours.
It's you know, you have Nash buff, you want to fight at Nash, that was very important, which set you up perfectly. However, you're completely disregarding this Gwen on the side lane with the 6 Void Grubs, and I was talking about it in the green room. I was like, oh, you're ignoring the grubs completely here for the side of Belfast Storm. And you get to push and push and push because obviously Belfast Storm, they think we have Nash, we will push into the space, we're at a numbers advantage, and it's kind of like trying to delay the TPs here for the side of Paragon, which they did very, very well. And this fight looks good. It's popping off. However, this TP is coming way too late. So turret's going down. TP is being delayed, therefore. And then you can just keep on pushing. And yes, she's tanking a whole lot of turret aggro here, but it doesn't matter because at this point, Corki has already pressed the TP button, and with his amount of wave clear and the Void Grubs that are still there from the Gwen as well, you just free hit Nexus and it's game. And that, my friends, is flippin' disgusting. And I would prefer to never see it ever again in my entire life. Thank you.
And that's how you do a backdoor. You keep your opponents
That
busy.
wasn't a
You throw
backdoor.
your health bars at him. Oh, well, with
How-
front door?
Yeah,
That's
that,
how you
yeah,
raise-
you
that's how
slapped
you
through the
raise the
front
base.
door. 100%. It's actually solo queue. It's like the Trinity you see in every single game. What they think of is that
I don't
game.
think it's solo queue, but it was absolutely desperation at the bottom of the barrel. So let's look forwards to game 3. We've seen 2 commanding games from Belfast Storm. I'm not gonna lie. Unfortunately, couldn't quite get it over the line there. Now, when it comes to game 3, you're Belfast, you got side selection for, I believe, the first time this series. Zathos, what are you gonna do? Who are you gonna call?
I mean, I don't think I should call for this team anymore. I've tried to support him. I've tried to not support him, and nothing really seems to be working out.
It's
in
all
this category.
backfired.
Like I don't know. I'm not even going to do a prediction because it could go either way. I don't know. People like Blue Side, maybe Belfast will pick strong champions. I don't know at this point. Just let the enemy pick Jana. That's probably what I'll try and do. Bait them into it.
The scriptwriter has spoken. Melee, what's going to
Yeah.
be the difference in this game 3? I can only imagine Belfast are over the blue side.
Yeah, I mean, I think the prio for Blue Side should be on top of the list here because Blue Side has been very, very broken for the longest time again, and I feel like you put yourself in a very comfortable position for this last game if you actually decide to go with Blue Side. You look confused.
This coming in, Belfast Storm choose red. They won that R5. They got to have the counter pick. It's not the way I do it.
It's a
If I'm
decision.
sticking to your
I'm down
guns,
for it.
fellas.
I'm down. You know what? Let this team do what they want. We didn't expect them to win the last series. We don't expect them to win this series, and here they are. You know what? Next thing, I'm going to vote for them to win against Ruddy if they get themselves all the way through, and that is a big deal. So that's my prediction. I'm saying the Belfast Storm are going to win this next game, even before the draft starting.
Okay, bald. Bald? No, bold. What?
I mean, okay,
Damn.
so
She's not native. Damn.
no,
okay.
we have to think about this because let's talk about that last game, everything that happened. We thought the one team was going to win, it just went polar opposite. So we don't need to be analysts.
It did not go polar opposite. That's the thing. It like for me, as much as I want to credit Paragon for, making the decision to push through the side lane, it was a major mistake, in my opinion, from the side of Belfast Storm.
It's incredible to me that the second Nexus dying death push was successful, and the Paragon have somehow got a 50-50 on that play this evening.
Yeah.
Fans coming through thick and fast. Sign-up Sprinter will not be running back his Cassante.
He's had Cassante 5 games in a row. His whole entire time is just either Cassante, if it's open, I pick that. If not, I'll pick up the Udo if possible. So makes very much sense with that band away. Now, this does leave 2 opportunities open for Belfast Storm. Do they want to get themselves the Nocturne, or are they going to be getting the Udo? Because one of these 2 picks is going to be left open. And if it is going to be one of them, does Paragon want to steal it away?
Ooh, I feel like, I don't know. I feel like just seeing how much prio was there for this top lane and how much involvement was there for this top lane, I feel like that's something you would want to pick up. So with Udyr still being there, I think that's something you would definitely want. However, Paragon, they seem to be very sure of their Corki pick. Even though
let's not forget the Corki was quite up on Vixen's Akali last game. She was still role playing through. She was still having a great time. And the Bear Man, we're waiting for the Bear Man.
Oh,
Maybe
it's
the
locked
Bear
in.
Man.
It's not even a shock at this point.
We're stalling right here. Yeah, Vixen had a pretty good game. Team atop a pretty big goldie. There it is, in it goes.
I love how you're hyping it all. I don't think there was any question on Belfast Storm's mind or yours or anyone in chat. If it's open, Synapse is picking it. And you got a question. His best champion is Udyr. His second best is Cassante. Why are you not banning away his best champion? Maybe Cassante is too broken.
He's taken all the bans for himself. That's crazy from a top laner. Dunlozzi's Poppy makes a return.
Gonna be pretty comfortable. I still think Corki's way to earn this position. I want to see how Paragon will be flexing around how Belfast Storm have been playing, because I want to see a little bit more early game agency from the bot lane. I want to see instead of Desire, maybe the Kai'Sa, of course, being taken away, but anything that just goes in a little bit more for themselves.
I do, however, think it's very interesting you're going with Kennen here. I think Kennen, for me, does have very much possible impact in teamfight situations. However, I'm not quite sure how that is going to look in laning phase, because I can just imagine that it's disgusting either way. Maru going back to the Wukong, in my opinion, is not the worst you can do. Viego obviously still banned. Belfast Storm still did their homework. Wukong, his third most played in solo queue, so I don't think that's a pick he feels necessarily uncomfortable on. However, I think he could have kind of executed it a little better here and there in last game. So let's see.
Could try and get those deeper picks a bit more frequently. Interestingly enough, that's Wukong and Kennen coming forwards into a Poppy Hammer. So we'll keep our eyes on the success rate there. It's a bit difficult. Same thing with long range carries eating up our second round of bans. Are we just straight running it back with a little change?
Can you really blame Belfast? They were literally knocking on the door saying, hey, we've won this game, and it gets ripped under from them. So I think they do need to stick with the same stuff. Loving the Akali. It did have difficulties early on against Timotopper. Timotopper has done really well in that last game to actually stop a base from Synapse to let them win that game. And even in the early game, got themselves those 2 extra tower plates, 1,000 gold lead already in this exact matchup. So I want to see a little bit of extra help towards the mid lane from jungle this time for Belfast.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. In general, I feel like jungle could be approached a little different here, because I know that Maru played a lot around topside, around those topside objectives. He did pick up the 6 void grabs. However, he completely ignored all the drakes, and I feel like that kind of came to bite him a little bit later on. Even though they ended up winning. So it's I don't know. But it looks pretty back to back. If we look at both the bans and the draft continuing on.
I'm hoping this isn't another ban Kai'Sa pick Xayah situation, because that's just not the optimization we're looking for. Bot lane, a big question mark.
Is it Corki bot, Silas mid? I mean, I don't mind this. I think it's rough, but I don't mind this.
I think we'd be remiss to say, welcome to the Four Nations. A few of our teams do play Silas support. I don't know if this is in Sack's wheelhouse. Is pretty good at Taric, which is a similar play pattern. And you say the words, man delivered.
It's that magic we have here today. Every one of us has been like, I think this would be the best option. It's like we know these players. As, of course, last pick coming out from Belfast Storm. You want something with a little bit of ranged.
We said at the end of last draft, it's like, this is a Caitlyn game. And they were like, no, must pick Twitch.
We've been building up every single pick of, this could happen. Doesn't happen that game. Comes over towards the second. But I'm loving the optimizations here. Corki towards bot lane, me and Melee said about how broken it is early on. My only issue is very short range. Hard to get towards that back line. So if he ever tries to go in towards the Caitlyn just nets herself out to safety. That lane seems pretty comfortable. So for me, so far, I think Belfast have a pretty strong comp.
He's cursing them twice, Melee. What do you think?
I mean, I do agree on the fact that Belfast have a very strong comp here. However, I think if you can manage to get the Corki ahead early on, the fall off he might have in the later stages of the game won't be as hard. So I would like for them to, give him a little bit of attention possibly, because it's hard to play into something as mobile as a Rakan on bot lane. So let's see how that goes. I think item build here as well is kind of crucial, because you can make the decision to either go Infinity Edge or Rapid Fire Cannon. I think I would go for Rapid here, because there is some opportunity to have that in laning phase. However, Infinity might be better for the later stages of the game, so that's going to be very interesting. I don't necessarily want to make a choice here. Like, I feel
I gotta push you.
it's really hard though.
Even if, that's why it's important.
I mean, look, I said ultimately Paragon would win. I did say it would be a 2-0 instead of a 2-1, but I'll give them the 2-1. Here you go.
Okay, 2-1 to Paragon. I think Kenji's Kennen, Sax Tarek, absolutely iconic. Got them into the RPS last time around. But they've looked so much of a struggle today. Belfast Storm do have some of their favorite characters. I think Caitlyn's incredible on the patch. You mentioned itemization already, but the collector, the opportunity coming out early on into the Infinity Edge, the curve is so nice and so sweet. So I also really don't know. I'm going to give it to Belfast Storm off the back of draft. I think it's fair to say in the last 2 hours they've earned it. And what you've earned at home is the chance to listen to our beautiful casters. Once again, Bloxer and Sovenix, we're going to kick it over to you. Maybe after a break, but we'll see. We'll see where we're going.
Hello, welcome back. We're into the cam straight away this time around. We're gonna, what's the phrase we use? We're gonna have some time to ramp, whatever that means. But okay, so we were discussing if Belfast Storm were to lose this series off the back of that last game. If you were on that team, how would that make you feel?
See, I have a single benefit as a gamer, and I'm not a tilter. That's my own. I don't have hands. I can't play video games, but I don't tilt when I lose. Probably because I lose very often. So I'd be fine. However, I'm not good at the game, and so there's no stakes for me. I wonder if Belfast Storm are going to be a little bit mad about that one, because maybe they're going to be a little bit mad about one. It makes sense, right? They were on the cusp of winning that game, and now here we are in Game 3 of an elimination match. I mean, that, if anything, is a tilter.
Oh, I mean, listen, you may not be a tilter, but I definitely am. Let me tell you now, if that happened to me, jeez, I would be off the charts. I'd be in all chat. I wouldn't even flame my teammates. I'd be like, I don't know, game sucks. No, I'm joking. But we're loaded into Game 3. This is the deciding game of who continues and who says goodbye this split. Now, draft-wise, Corki, this time not in the mid lane, into the bot lane, Silas into the Akali. How do you think that changes things? Because obviously Corki, a scaling DPS champion, Silas, very different to what Corki wants to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is going to be a much easier time for Timotopia to play this one out. I think the Corki actually was a pretty well-played game out of him in the last one. Sure, the early laning phase did not go his way whatsoever, but once we were in the team fights, was the main source of damage that Paragon relied on, was a huge bit of their wave clear as well that kept them in that game. That being said, I like this Silas a lot more. I think you could actually go toe-to-toe with this Akali. You can really get involved with this matchup in a way that you just weren't able to the previous round, and I think that Last is going to have a good time on this Corki too. It's a champion that's quite a lot in his wheelhouse and makes sense for his playstyle, right? Was getting jumped on the Xayah, and sure, Xayah has some disengage tools, but the Corki's also pretty mobile, can also go in very effectively if he wants to get super aggressive too, and I think paired up with the Taric is very good. The thing with the Taric though, it's very much a win more champion, right? And if you fall behind, it feels so much worse to try to play this one out, so I do wonder what Paragon are going to do to ensure that they are in a winning position already, and that they can really use this Taric effectively.
Exactly.
Synapse is just going to keep going. Like...
This is a jungler's worst nightmare when
Yeah.
the enemy top lane is just for whatever reason being a pest in your own jungle. Mara actually does force Mara to change his parking a little bit. Instead of starting the Wolves is what he wanted to do. Has to start on the Raptors. So I think Silent Sprinter will just base and...
No, he's just going to walk.
He's just going to walk back to lane. I'm
Yeah.
curious to see how much he misses. As you can see, Don Nosi moving into the bottom side jungle potentially might go for an invade.
Yeah, I mean, you can be relatively, not sure, but relatively understand. Wait, he doesn't... Okay. Takes the second one, so he now knows that he's been spotted outright here. Could potentially get collapsed upon, but I don't know. Timotopia, pretty low health, pushed onto tower. Sack's going to have to abandon Lasp to do this, unless he might just get away with this one.
Yeah, the invade. He's going to get the backup over the Rakan stun from Sack. Is going to land. The
Maru got
smite
it.
actually secured by Maru, and Donlosi might have to bite the bullet for that one. Mr. Freeze gets the first moved in terms of who the AD carry is going to be here in this fight, and he is going to get the first blood. Donlosi does have to drop, but the blast cone is being attacked by Baron. The knockup's going to land, and Sack may be going to survive, but Mr. Freeze on that prio pick Caitlyn is going to lock in 2 kills 3 minutes into this game.
Yeah, that's a bit of a disaster right here. The Caitlyn is such an interesting champion where it really needs to get early push going and just munch tower plates. It's sort of a B-Tech Ziggs in a lot of ways. If you don't get a ton of tower plates onto this Caitlyn, she really isn't able to do that much. That being said, Arcane Season 2 has come out, and so the Caitlyn is actually pretty strong at the moment and doesn't have to rely on all of these turret platings. And so giving these 2 kills over, plus the fact you're already into a matchup that isn't super threatening to you, I think that Mr. Freeze is going to be very, very happy with that one, and the fact that the return kill only went over to Sack makes it even better.
Yeah, exactly, and I think the key thing there, as you said, Caitlyn gets the push in extremely well. Last could not move at all, and she didn't make any efforts to do so, and The interesting thing is he's even behind in CS after all of that. So he's down in CS, 2 kills onto the hands of the opposition AD carry. And now, Belfast Storm, they could hopefully for their mental sake, be repeating their successes throughout the series. And, well, it's just a question of whether they can close this one out a lot cleaner than the last one, of course.
Yeah, of course, and we'll see if that actually comes to fruition. For right now, pretty chill. I mean, they can go for another dive here, and I am worried that that's the way that this is going to be going. Thanos should be spotted right now, but I don't know that there's much really that Paragon's bot lane can do about this. They do manage to drag Maru down, has to abandon the chickens to be able to do so, and basically just causes a delay for Maru. Isn't actually going to be able to counter this in any real way. This bot lane continues to be just a little bit of a stalemate. Hang on,
Yeah, well, the
joined.
trade is very aggressive. Timotopper has moved from the mid lane to this bot lane play, but there is no play. And even though Sack was landing the stuns, it's Mr. Freeze with 2 kills on a Caitlyn. Hasn't even bought items yet, and still winning out on the trade. So they are absolutely fine, and will just get away. Timotopper loses a little bit on the mid lane as well, off the back of that roam. And last game, we saw some pretty big CS leads being traded here and there, but this time around, look at the mid 80 carry deficit from the side of Paragon. It's pretty big.
Yep.
Belfast Storm will be happy with that.
Absolutely, they will be. The only real, leveling factor is the top lane, but really, considering how long Silent Sprinter spent harassing Maru in his own jungle, it's really not that big. It's only a little bit, and yet you can see the gold gap is pretty huge at the moment. 1,000 in the bot lane, which with the 2 kills, the CS gap, it makes sense, but still, 1,000 gold, as we were talking about, 10 minutes in is huge. 6 minutes in? Yeah, that's a verifiable canyon right now.
Yeah.
And with the base coming through from Mr. Freeze as well, going to be actually able to spend that gold and use it to just continue the domination in this lane. Paragon, though, they are picking up the grubs, and hey, we saw how that one ended last time around.
No,
so...
stop that.
Hey, Dunlossy's learned his lesson. He's learned his lesson. He has arrived. Actually, Varin has also walked up to this as well. They are not giving up 6 grubs this time.
Yeah, they're saying to themselves, not this time. Back up Maru from those goddamn grubs. Yeah, they don't want to give their 6 grubs. I mean, yeah. That again, I echo the statements from the analyst desk. Let's hope we don't have to watch anything like that ever again. Mr. Sack potentially looking for a flank behind Mr. Freeze. Doesn't have the flash, so if he does get the stun off, this is going to be a nice shutdown into the pocket of the Corki, and Last is going to pick that up. Mr. Freeze disrespecting the missingness of where that Taric was. Thought that Taric was matching the roam on the other side, but instead was just right behind you.
That cuts the gap in half as well. It was a nice big shutdown plus the kill gold there too. Still, 500 gold is going to be the lead for Mr. Freeze. Not the end of the world, but you don't want to be giving up those sorts of shutdowns early on. Don't want to be allowing Paragon to stick their head back into this early game. The overall gold has gone back to being pretty much even as well. And although we've seen some small skirmishes, some little plays here and there, nothing too big has happened so far. We do have an Infernal Drake on the map though, and I'd be surprised to see that one be allowed to sit and live for that much longer. It's a very high priority Drake. Both of these teams would love themselves an individual Infernal Drake.
Yeah, and I'm actually surprised that with that, I guess, grub contest, that Paragon didn't make some quick movement over to the bottom side of the map to start that dragon off. I think 2 grubs picked up by Belfast Storm and 1 by Paragon. And actually, Belfast Storm get the priority onto the dragon anyway, so I think Maru just gonna head over to his red buff to continue his clear, conceding this dragon completely uncontested. And yeah, well, Belfast Storm winning on the objective front early doors.
Indeed they are, and that's a little bit different to the previous one. The Drakes have been pretty far in Belfast's favour, but they weren't particularly worried about the grubs in really Game 1 or Game 2 this time around. Have put a bit more priority onto that one, but still, they're keeping up their domination with the Drakes, and that has... Hang on.
Whoa, it's all happening in the mid lane. Ultimate's being traded. Surprised, because I am here for this one. Don't Lucy, the jungler, present for that fight in the bottom side. Maru, Sack, and Last tried to look for something onto the bot lane of Belfast Storm, but with Don Lucy already picking up that kill in the mid lane and running straight over to the bottom side, Paragon just have to back off that skirmish, and it will just be a 1-for-0 trade in favor of Belfast Storm.
Yeah, and it looked like it was going to be a much closer fight, but unfortunately Timotopper ends up missing one of the chains, and then Dunlossie comes out of nowhere, just picks up that kill nice and easily. And that gives another bit of advantage over to Vixen right here, who had a okay game in the previous one. Definitely going to be looking to have an even better matchup this time around, running back the Akali. We do once again see Dunlusy try to get into this bottom lane, looking for a lane gank here potentially. I don't know how long he's really going to want to sit around and wait, although potentially if Paragon step up, they're going to get themselves in trouble.
Oh no, Lars, that's way too aggressive. Had no idea that Dunlusy was in that bush. Mr. Freeze with one more shot, gonna snipe the head of Last underneath his own turret. Way too aggressive on the Valkyrie with the Corki. Want to be using that defensively in most scenarios, and unfortunately has to die on the bot side.
Oh boy, we're gonna have a look at that mid lane play once again. Yeah, Timotova just ends up missing out on a ton of that damage and then tries to flash away, but Dunlusy's right there, ready to pick that one up. But it's the bot lane play that I think is a bit more impactful, right? That's the third kill going over to Mr. Freeze right now. That's Last dying again and blows the flash barrier too, so is in a very vulnerable position. You really don't want that. As we were saying earlier on, the Tark needs to play from ahead. The 2.5 seconds that it takes for that ulti to come down means that trying to use it when you're already being engaged upon is terrifying, especially with a composition like Belfast's, which can engage so very quickly, can really make a snap decision to go in. You need to be in a strong position already going into these team fights to use the Taric super effectively, and losing out on this bot lane matchup quite as hard as Paragon are right now is going to call whether or not Sack can actually do that into question.
Yeah, and I think the Taric will have major value in some of these latter objective fights, but right now it's kind of just been the bot side of Belfast Storm. 3 kills into the pocket of the Caitlyn. They are so far ahead right now. Collector already completed. This is going to be a point of pressure for them to use. Dunlusy, again, prioritizing these groves, being the first one on it, whilst Maru on the opposite side of the map, so no contest, potentially looking for a turret dive, but not seeing any angles for them to pull this one off. I think teleport is available for Kennen and the Udyr if that wants to get used. Baron missing out on the knock-up already, but beautiful traps placed into that bush defensively, meaning that they get the groves on one side, they don't lose anything on the bottom side.
Yeah, they're just going to be happy enough to make that trade right here. That's the thing with the Grubs and that first Drake being so desynced. You're then able to get that second set pretty much for free. 5 in the back pocket. Paragon getting jumped here as well. Mr. Freeze does a lot of damage at the moment. Has that collector completed already. Doesn't result in any kills, but still dissuades any potential aggression that Maru was looking to lay down. The mid laners, they're going at it again.
Yeah, Timotopper using that quickness to just sway away Vixen. No mana, so to use that to get away Vixen. Use the perfect execution. And I think these two mid laners... The nature of this matchup is they both like hit each other a lot, but usually no one dies. So, yeah. They both live. But it was cool. Like an anime scene.
Yeah. I mean, these two champions are very flashy, right? If you're going to animate something, it would be these two kind of champions right here. Vixen could potentially go in for a little bit of extra damage. It would be very risky, though.
Bot lane. God, Varren gets the knock-up. Sack just about avoiding that trap. I feel like if that was another headshot, probably we're looking at a dead Taric here. And the bot lane pressure, it looks so difficult to contain.
Yeah.
As, recalls get interrupted with the ace in the hole. Dunlusy over the wall, channeling the Hex Flash. Maru is in this bush here to try and defend this dive, but all this is doing is just giving space for Mr. Freeze to pick up another plate. That's 3 that the Caitlyn has acquired over the course of these 13 minutes, and I'm quite scared for how ahead this Caitlyn is going to end up being. Onto Last here, Dunlusy threatening another dive. There's a control wall this time around. Keeper's Verdict going to be used aggressively. A Sack now gets channeled and aggressed on. The teleport is coming through, but it does get interrupted. And so no teleport is being used. I think it was Kenji who gets interrupted by Cyanide Sprinter, but in the mid lane, Timotopper going aggressive underneath Vixen's turret. Vixen has to flash away. Survive initially, but the bot lane pressure does not stop there. And Maru looking for a gank, goes over the wall with the clone. Baron now in danger, uses the quickness, gets knocked up with the cyclone. Dunlusy is here. Mr. Freeze just does way too much damage. Flash forward, headshot into the head of the Wukong, and is going to pick up his 4th kill of the game. Belfast Storm's bot lane has been a never-ending threat in this last game, and it just does result in a failed gank into a broken down turret. Belfast Storm going to be very far ahead off the back of this one.
Oh boy, and this is why there were calls for the Caitlyn in the previous game, right? It's really in a good spot at the moment, and Mr. Freeze is playing it incredibly well. You can just see from the way that he's positioning, he's confident. He knows what he can do with it, and 4 kills shows that that is absolutely correct right here. And the rest of the map is beginning to fall because of all of the special attention that Paragon need to put into this bot lane. You're roaming Timatopa down to try to help out in the bot lane. You know, Maru is spending tons of time down there, and it means that Dunlossie's got a big gap in terms of the CS, also has picked up more kills and more assists as well, and it means that the overall gold gap has increased massively, 3 and a bit thousand in favour of Belfast Storm at the moment. We're not even 15 minutes into the game right now. The next potential objective is going to be this Rift Herald. Belfast have been pretty good for picking up all of them so far, and I would be surprised to not see that continue. Dunlossie has headed towards the top side, as has the bot lane for Belfast. They're rotating around this massive win condition, this massive pressure point for their team, and making sure that they can be as effective as possible in getting all of these objectives nice and easy for the team.
Exactly, and well, Belfast still very ahead after what we saw in the last game. Let's not count out Paragon until a Nexus has been exploded. As well, Mr. Freeze, we see the gold lead. God damn, that is intense. As Kenji now under threat. I think Paragon have no idea where Varen and Dunlossie is right now. They're going to reveal themselves as they exit that bush. Sack does land a stun as everyone has to leave, but I think the key thing here is now the split push is going to start. Sign-Up Sprinter and Timatopa entering a form of a duel. I think the Udyr extremely tanky, but with the backup of Maru, this Udyr might be in threat. Has to flash over the wall. The Chain Lash not going to land as Maru tries to get the knock up with the Cyclone. Sack is here to maybe get a stun as Maru does eventually bring down the Udyr. Vixen has to use the R2 to get away. All this does, though, is it does buy some time for Belfast Storms to secure, once again, another free objective.
Yeah, I mean, they only lose out onto a kill right there. It still is at least something, right? Paragon, they're going to be happy enough to have gotten a kill back, at least. Also buys a decent amount of time top line for Kenji to begin to take down this tower. No turret plates available and unlikely to be able to pick up the full thing. It's not the end of the world either. And yeah, it's just such a different game. This is a lot slower paced overall. As I say, that of course teleporting to the top lane.
Yeah, Kenji has to use that E to get away. Does have flash available if he needs to use it. That's a really nice slicing maelstrom just to get them off that potential dive. Kenji will be able to get away. Doesn't have to use the flash as well.
Yeah, and not having to use the flash there is incredibly important. Still, though, is going to lose that top lane tier 1 tower, and Belfast continue their map domination at the moment. Not necessarily using the Caitlyn to move it around into all the lanes and pick up the towers, but instead just using the pressure that you can form in the mid lane to take all of the, you know, attention, I guess, from Paragon away from that lane. It's also going to get a second charge onto this top lane tier 2 tower, and Kenji left in the lane just to pick up the tatters at this point.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because I feel like Timatopa is, you know, you love this guy. You absolutely hype this guy up, and I think you're not alone, honestly, in terms of rating this player as a high-leveled mid laner, but I feel like he hasn't been activated this series. I might be just about to eat my words as he makes a play onto Sign-Up Sprinter here. Flash was already using the play on the bottom side. Kenji is going to land the stun. Maru here just as an insurance policy to make sure this Udyr is going to drop. And just as I was saying, they haven't been able to activate Timatopa. He picks up a kill straight away on the top side.
He can hear when people are saying things about him, and
He's that good.
knows.
He's that good.
Yeah. Exactly. No, it is just a really nice play. Recognizes that Sign-Up Sprinter right now is the weak link, not through any real fault of his own. Just the rest of the champions right now are incredibly strong or so slippery that they're an Akali. So instead, go towards that top laner, try to get the kills there. You're also going to pick yourself up that tier 1 tower in the top lane. Another big injection of gold into Timatopa. Has got that first item completed already, but well on the way to the second. And that's the point at which this Sylas can really become strong, become something you really need to focus on. And I think the thing for Paragon is, yeah, the early game's been a bit rough for them, but this team composition can team fight very effectively. They haven't done a great job of getting themselves there even, but still, once we get into these big 5v5 team fights, there's a chance that, you know, Maru, Kenji getting into the backline and being able to pop their ultis could swing a team fight in their favor. very effectively.
Exactly, and Mr. Freeze didn't opt for the cleanse, so, I mean, we're going to see how this one blows out. Kenji already using the Slicing Maelstrom. The Tarak ultimate is going to keep them alive and safe for now, but as soon as it goes down, here comes the Akali to just rain havoc on the backline of Paragon. Timotopper trying to evacuate over to that mid lane turret. Baron gets the knock up onto Last as he has to flash away to safety. Sack very, very close to his base. Can he get away? He doesn't quite make it as he gets sliced down where he stands by Vixen, and just as we were saying they have the tools to scale into this game, they all get cut down immediately. They are going to try to make a push toward this mid lane turret, but Belfast Storm here to stop them straight away. Maru and Timotopper have to escape through the top side of the map, opening Belfast Storm to just head over to the bottom side and grab themselves their soul point in this game.
I'd love to see a replay of the start of that fight, because I think it was a situation where I don't think either of these teams knew who was catching who. I think that Kenji thought that he had a flank, but at the same time, Dunlossi and Varen knew that they had a flank, and you can see the instant Maelstrom coming through, but it just isn't enough, even with the Tarak ulti too, and just, there's so many more members, so much more proactivity available right here to Belfast Storm, and they make the most of it, and then everybody else is just left to run for their lives. Last has to flash over the wall to survive. Sack loses his life, and yeah, like you said, it's going to result in the Drake, as we just saw in that picture-in-picture. Timotopper looking for another kill potentially onto Synapse Sprinter, but it's pretty tricky to do by yourself.
Yeah, he's going to try to go for it very, very deep. Does get that stun from Sack. Synapse Sprinter close to his turret, so they have to stop the chase for now. Baron is here. Kenji even using the teleport to try and supply some support, but Baron just dodging away from all the stuns for now. Members of Belfast Storm are hanging around. Maru just going to catch it to Mr. Freeze. He does have flash still, and I think the Caitlyn is just way too fed, so that catch is turning on its head. Vixen now in the back line. Maru 1 HP, but Vixen is going to drop.
Maru lives. Wait, the
hasn't been able to finish off any targets. Timotopper has found a flank onto the back line, not on top of any key targets for now. He's trying to finish off Baron, but Mr. Freeze does land a final headshot. It's a double kill for the Caitlyn, and yes, you take down one threat, but there's another threat right in front of your eyes as Mr. Freeze gets a double kill. Kenji tries to break down the mid lane turret, but they're here to finish off, and the ace in the hole is going to pick up Mr. Freeze's third kill of this fight. It could be an unofficial pentakill, as now the Killatz comes through. Synapse Sprinter teleports in. It's another double kill and an unofficial quadra kill coming in for Mr. Freeze, and Belfast Storm, they are running this map completely. Sack has to run away, as Synapse Sprinter just moves over to the bottom side, and Bloxer, please tell me there's no way that this game is going to end in a loss for Belfast Storm.
I refuse to say those words, because the second I say those words, I curse this matchup.
Well, there is a TP coming in behind, and now Mr. Freeze, without the flash this time, stolen Recon ult, and the Caitlyn is gonna die.
That's a big shutdown.
That is a big shutdown indeed. Baron now has to get himself out of here. There is a Baron buff, so killing down 2 members is gonna open up that big purple worm if you want to take it. Chains gets protected, and Timotopper knows exactly where Baron is trying to go. Vixen now has to get out of here because the Baron gets started up by Paragon.
And yeah, that's why I didn't want to say those words, because here come Paragon. They're able to get the punish on the overpush right here from Mr. Freeze. That's the majority of your team damage now gone. That being said, Vixen, Dunlossi, they are going to be able to step up onto this one, see what they can do. It's a very slow Baron take from Paragon, and Dunlossi could potentially look to steal it. Has a blast cone to get over the wall.
Yeah, Synapse Sprinter, no teleporter, just has to keep going on that bottom side. Keeper's Verdict is going to be used, but not finding the angle onto Maru, so now Dunlossi knows he needs to get out of here. Doesn't have the flash. He's going to get interrupted with Maru's Cyclone. Beautiful cancel by the Wukong. Now Dunlossi in the face of 2 people. Vixen in a 1 versus 1, and just as you said, yes, the base is in threat. Mr. Freeze has arrived back to the fight, and now here comes the quickness from Baron. The knock up onto 2, the headshot onto 2. It's 2 kills for the Caitlyn. Synapse Sprinter's just going to keep pushing down the bot side. 1 inhibitor turret is going to go down, but the rest of Belfast Storm are going to keep chasing. Maru needs to get over to that top side turret if he wants to survive this one and keep that Baron buff. Baron not able to land that knock up, so he will be fine for now. But Belfast Storm, I think in the end, if this Baron doesn't achieve much, will be the favorites in this trade.
I mean, it's the right play out of Paragon. They had to make it. But then at the end, Mr. Freeze, Baron, they finally respawned, and it's a decision out of Paragon by some of the members to chase and by others
Yeah.
to run away. Unfortunately, that split decision ends in a couple of deaths. You lose a couple of those Baron buffs. Still, though, they managed to close up the gap between them in terms of gold by a little bit. I think more than anything, you get to take away that Baron buff from this 5 grubbed up Caitlyn, because that would have been terrifying. That would have been these towers just melting in the face of her gun. Instead, things are going to be a little bit more even. Paragon showing that they can potentially win fights, but they need picks to be able to do it. The straight up 5v5 team fights have not been working.
Yeah, has not indeed. They do get this mid lane turret, and now the important Mountain Soul. This was a massive problem for them and has been throughout this series, and if they give this one up, this game is going to be so difficult to contest. They will get priority onto this mid lane wave, but it is 30 seconds from spawning onto the map, and when it does, this is going to be a heated team fight.
Absolutely. Have to see what the decision is right now. The Baron empowered minions are at least buying space right now for Paragon, allowing them to establish control around the pit, but still, all of the vision, all of the potential flank TP wards are up and available for Belfast Storm, and it's also worth noting that one down in the bottom lane, near enough to the base of Paragon, that if things get really iffy, Belfast could potentially go for a, you know, back door, front door? I don't even know at this point. Synapse?
Yeah, well,
Synapse?
Timotopper is actually going to find a catch onto Synapse Sprinter. He's made his entry into this one way too soon. The Udyr very, very tanky in the face of the Silas, but Timotopper trying to look for access into assassinating anyone he can. Mid lane priority secured already by Belfast Storm. Keeper's verdict is just going to knock away the clone, I believe. And so all members of Paragon are present in this fight. They are standing strong. Synapse Sprinter only lost half of his health, but Timotopper, I think, looking to recall and TP back into the fight, as he did use a lot of his mana pool to trade onto Synapse Sprinter. And now they're entering the fight on 2 separate fronts. Synapse Sprinter trying to go from that tri-bush. The rest of Belfast Storm in here. Exactly. So many Caitlyn traps there, making it difficult, minimizing the space of the fight. Is going to break out. The Taric ultimate is down onto everybody. Knock up onto 2 by Baron. Kenji comes in with a slicing maelstrom as he's locking down everyone from Belfast Storm. Mr. Freeze does go into a killing spree, but Kenji might have just won this fight for his team. He stunned up everyone, and the rest of the damage comes through. Kenji, with the slicing maelstrom, keeps Paragon alive in this series and stops the soul sweep from Belfast Storm.
Oh, and what a fight that is. It's a truly brilliant bring down of the Cosmic Radiance right here. Just about keeps Sak alive, protects the rest of the team, and then Maru 1, Kenji 2. The 1-2 punch is just gonna bring down the members of Belfast Storm. They don't get the clean ace right here, but it's more than enough damage done to be able to pick up the dragon as well. A ton of big shutdowns go into the back pockets of Paragon, and they've brought themselves back to within 1,000 gold of Belfast Storm. Next big objective is the Baron in 2 minutes time, and Paragon, they just keep buying more and more time for themselves to get this composition further and further online.
Yep, and what a beautiful play from Maru and Kenji, setting that up for Belfast Storm. And this is exactly what you were talking about. If Paragon can get the ideal team fight with the Kennen ultimate and the Wukong ultimate on top of this immobile Caitlyn without a cleanse, Mr. Freeze is dead. And that right there is a perfect example of how they want to play these fights.
Really is, and I mean, for anybody who's a fan of these teams and not just a neutral observer enjoying watching the fireworks, there's this one. How's your heart doing? You feeling okay right now? Because I cannot imagine having anything riding on the outcome of this game. It's so back and forth. I really couldn't predict who's going to be able to win this one. Both of these compositions scale pretty well, right? Neither of these junglers are the best in the later game, really relying on working alongside the rest of their team. They're very tanky at the moment, there's Dunlossie, but the big knock-up from Maru alongside Kenji's ulti was huge. I mean, it really is on so many individuals right now to pull out that moment, to find that big engage, and everybody's on good champions to be able to do it. 40 seconds now until the Baron. Belfast have full control of this Baron pit. The amount of vision, yes, thank you, observers. There is nothing right now for Paragon to see in and around this Baron pit. And in 30 seconds time, they're really going to need to know what's going on, because losing the Baron right now could well be losing the game.
It really could. I think losing the Baron here is just going to set up both of these teams into a game-ending push, or at least setting up for a potential game-ending push. And now Paragon, they're clearing out the vision set up here by Belfast Storm. There are 3 blue trinkets in one spot. That's interesting.
Yep.
As,
They really want
Marius-
vision right there.
Important area of vision is done. Nice.
Yeah.
Just drops a pink ward right back into the same spot after the vision gets cleared out. Mr. Freeze trying to contest that mid lane priority. Oh, there's another. Wow, they really care about this area, don't they? It's Belfast Storm understand the stakes here. If they lose a game, if they lose this series after that second game,
Oh my lord.
It's not gonna feel good for them.
Or if you don't want to see that back door, front door again for the next, 2 weeks' time, you better hope that Paragon are going to lose, because that's promotional material right here. Paragon, though, they're going to start up this Baron. Belfast are well aware this is happening, though.
Yeah, Belfast Storm now making their way over into the Baron pit. It was already being brought down to 10,000 HP. Dunnosy not even near the pit for now, as he's being man-marked. Kenji!
Oh, Kenji, though!
Green, and he's gonna catch everyone with the slicing maelstrom. Mr. Freeze is no longer the Cosmic Radiance, keeping everyone alive.
my.
Paragon are just wiping members one by one. Synapse Printer not taking enough in the Mac line, as it looks like Dunnosy's just running away onto the other side of the map. Gets hit with the chain lash, and Timber Topper landing the final Q to finish off that target. Belfast Storm, the approach was late, and now it's only Vixen standing in the face of Paragon, who are barreling down this mid lane wave, and they could be setting themselves up to win out this series.
Oh, what a disaster this one is for Belfast Storm. Game 2 was in their hands. Game 3, back and forth, but Kenji knows what's up, and he wants to move on in these playoffs.
Yeah, they're looking for this game. 2 Nexus turrets are gone. Baron are going in, but it's over. Belfast Storm, you have this game in your hands, this series, but it's Paragon who rise above the rest and close this one out 2-1.
I would like to know about how the keyboards and monitors are doing for Belfast Storm's members right now. I want to know if anything's snapped in half.
Oh, things have been snapped. That's a guarantee.
Well, I think that's it from us, but I think we'll leave it to the rest of the desk to break this one down. I think we're going to go for a quick break, and then interview, and then post-game analysis in the desk. See you soon.
Welcome back, Four Nations Enjoys. I am joined by Kenji. Good evening, Kenji.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Happy birthday, by the way. What a
Thank you.
gift to come back in game 3 of this series for the reverse sweep. What's the vibe? How you doing?
Honestly, like I swear that's like the highest my heart rate's been in like any series ever. Like it was honestly
I'm
such a
gonna,
fun
I'm
experience.
gonna
It was
have
so
to
fun.
change one of my questions. One was literally like, how was your fast beating at X point? Game 1, bit rough. What was
Yeah,
the vibe coming out of the game? Were there some strong words said? It looked pretty doomed from our outset, but clearly it was working.
yeah. Honestly, like the first game and like the start of the second game, we were like really tilted, like as a team. So
Yeah,
we managed to come back though. Like we had some good fights, but we couldn't like find the end like angle.
okay. So
Like
you had
there
the
was a point in
faith.
the game. Wait, actually, I was gonna say sorry. There's a point in the game, like
Yeah.
the first game, like I backed instead of like I had an angle to end the game, but I backed instead. So I was
Aw.
kind of angry about that, like the entire time.
Hey, you're 50-50 on death splits today. Talking of which, the second game, what went through the comms is, the meter went from like 99% loss to 99% win and it flipped on its head.
Yeah, so like I was just splitting, and I was just saying like, I'm just gonna play for Talos now, and I'm pretty sure Pedro, like our ADC last, he just said like the only way we can win is if you like end the game now. So I just kept going, and like I was just hitting, like I wasn't even thinking at the point, like I was just praying. I was literally just praying because that entire game, like the amount of dark thoughts coming from my head it's not normal. Like it was
You
such a roller
channeled them
coaster of
in for the
emotions.
death push.
No, seriously, I was flaming myself so hard for that game. Like it was so bad. Like that was such a bad performance, and we just got lucky that that he TP'd to the wrong tower too. He literally TP'd to the wrong tower.
Yeah,
Actually cost them.
it would have been a very, very, very close 2 minutes after that teleport in. Unfortunately, didn't manage to select the right Nexus tower. Game 3, a bit more neutral. The cannon was fantastic in the team fights.
Thank
Is
you.
the Paragon comfort zone just game 3 with it all on the line? Is that when you guys come together the best?
Yeah, I felt like everyone stepped up in that third game. Like we were just kind of on point. Like we warmed up after the first two, but I basically just said in the last fight, like as soon as Kate walks up, I'm just gonna flash now because she has no flash, and then we just went. But yeah, the
Yeah.
tower caught in the second fight was crazy as well. So
It was
my whole team stepped up too.
so clean.
It
I
was
saw Mr. Freeze. He was having a pretty good Caitlyn show, and
yeah.
every time he tried to hit someone, they were just golden. It was
No, he was playing so well to the point that like we had to kill him every fight or we just lose. So we were literally just like we're just shot calling just to focus him every time.
just find the AD carry, just
fly
get
him.
him out of there. What's next for you guys? It's Ruddy. Do you have any words of wisdom either for your team or a message to your opponent?
Well, this time hopefully I can overcome the third place curse, which is like I always get third place no matter like what I play. So hopefully I can overcome that and get over my nerves because whenever I play against Akkers, like I always lose. So hopefully this time will be different.
You've had an excellent performance today, so watch out, Akkers. You got a challenger who's coming again in the third place curse to be
We'll see.
broken. Unlucky Belfast Storm. Thank you so much, Kenji, and we're gonna hit it back over to the desk.
Yeah, thank you. See you guys.
It's the desk. Hello, everyone. That was Kenji.
Hello.
Kenji had a fantastic performance this series. I think it's more than fair to say, and showed up massively, being the instrument that ends game 2, and then such a pivotal part of game 3. Congratulations once again. Oh, how are you guys doing? Are we still breathing at a rate considered normal for rest? We
You
coming
can
back
say
down?
that. Can definitely say that. It's more chaotic than solo queue half time, but I still just can't get the play out of my mind of the Gwen, of what Kenji did when he was able to find that. I can't even call it backdoor because it was slamming through the front door, taking down 5 different towers to finish off that game. Just absolutely incredible, and it's everything the UKL should be.
Yeah.
Melee, are you calm once more?
I mean, look, game 1 was a banger. Game 2 made me lose my mind, and game 3 was very different, yet exactly what I wanted it to be in a way. And I loved that within the game we had the turns tabling, and I love that. I'm
Frequently.
really happy. I'm really happy.
Zathos, I think it's fair to say your playoffs curse of 0 of 5 correct predictions
I am.
is starting a snowball, and may we see it continue because it's absolutely hilarious. To
'Cause
respect that, let's take us through Belfast Storm's early lead in the bottom lane.
it hurts because Belfast had this game fully in their hands. Remember, their Caitlyn got those 2 kills very early on. All they had to do was just extend their lead further and further and finish off the game. But it just was too little too late. But of course, need to go back to the start and see exactly where everything was going right for them. So of course, Dunlosey splitting the map early on, not actually spotted out by the enemy team until a little bit too late. So of course they come in thinking that Tarek and Wukong is going to be strong enough. But the most crucial thing here is take a look at what Caitlyn does towards the bot side, actually making sure that they are able to move first. Same with Vixen towards the mid lane. So this 2 versus 2 that was going pretty even has now turned into a 4 versus 2. First kill goes over, and this is just a beautiful from Varin. Using that blast cone to get themselves out to safety, finds the W as well. So now double kill onto Caitlyn. They built up that lead afterwards to get themselves a 4,000 gold lead on him. Difficult game for sure for Belfast Storm to lose.
Yeah.
It looked like it was going so well.
Because it was.
It was going so well. You know, the Caitlyn, we mentioned it in game 2 Strife. It's like, oh, hey, this slots together. This goes nice and early and goes quick. It really fit the vibe.
Yeah,
And
I
such a
mean,
shame.
it
Such a
did.
shame.
But the thing is, I remember saying, I'm afraid we're having the same situation again because we did have an Ashe that was so fed, so strong, but incapable of ending the game on her high note. And I fear it was kind of the same thing with the Caitlyn, where it's like you got ahead very early on. You did play that very controlled, very nice. However, your enemy comp is just scaling and scaling and scaling. And at some point, the poke was insane coming out of that Corki. And I gotta say, I understand why we're a big fan of mid lane in this specific match.
For sure. For sure. Talking of the moment it started to go all wrong for Belfast Storm Melee, this replay.
Yeah, it was incredible because it looks really good here as well for Belfast Storm. They have push in mid lane. They want to go further forward. But as you can already see, there is a little bit of a ward towards the river. And as they keep pushing, TP is coming through here from the Sylas. And this is a great play for both Maru and the Sylas in combination because they were absolutely unseen here. Like Sylas had just free roam, could do whatever he liked, and gets to pick up 2 incredible kills here. And most importantly, the kill onto the Caitlyn, one of the first bigger shutdowns that they got in this game. And I kind of felt like this was the turning point because it showed that there is a lot of opportunity on the side of Paragon in this game. And it looked very, very one sided for quite some time. But this was the point when the team fights started snowballing towards blue side.
Yeah, it was a definite refuse to lose vibe out of Paragon. I think even in the first game, that Ashe comeback was a real swing. And as Kenji sort of mentioned there in the interview, they were so confident, but they had so much yet to do that they couldn't actually get the game finished. Zathos, we've got one more fight. We've got one more fight, and we're gonna cue that as soon as we're ready with it. And you're gonna take us through the beginning of the end for this game.
I mean, before we even get into it, what an absolutely beautiful team fighting comp they get themselves on the Paragon lineup. They had the Tarek, of course, Wukong, something that Masu has been playing a lot. And we could just see it yet again here as we see everybody's clumped up as you want to. All they have to do is kill the Caitlyn. Number 1 priority, and that's what they were saying, all in towards the comp. So you see 2 sides trying to get on top of it, and it's all what Maru does in just a second. Tarek Oak comes down, hits onto 4 members of the team. Khan is able to start up Maru, but as this comes down, he jumps straight onto Mr. Freeze, finding this 3-man cyclone as well with that cannon ultimate on top. And once Caitlyn's down, this team fight is just over. And this all comes down to this team Paragon understood they're not going to win early. Caitlyn is too strong for them to fight. Later game goes, once you have that Tarek ultimate down, if you have enough to burst out an AD carry, you win these fights. So great little play there, got Paragon the win.
It was all they needed to complete that reverse sweep, clutched from the depths of despair, from the closest Belfast 2-0 that was this close to coming to pass. Melee, Turns out I can't count. We've got one more replay for you.
Yeah, this is like the game-winning team fight, I would say. It's kind of similar to what we just saw at the Drake pit. Not only does this was the Baron fight, obviously, and they have a lot of time here to stall the Baron, keep it going, and yeah, nice engage here again from the cannon, so important. And then it's being followed up once more by an incredible Taric ultimate that just does so much work here, keeping the team alive. There's no damage output on the side of Belfast Storm that can overcome this Taric ultimate. And through that play, they immediately manifested their way into the enemy base and they cleaned it up, and that was it. And I felt like I didn't see this extreme of a switch coming at the beginning of the game. However, it absolutely makes sense if you look at what they drafted and how incredibly they were able to layer all these ultimates on top of each other.
Taric ult was all the space, all the time they needed, and part of the reason Kenji, I think, deserves that interview. That was a slicing maelstrom of all time. You know, if I do remember, and I am gonna have to go write this down now, we're gonna have to stick that in some promos. I think that was the one. Zathos, closing words on the day. It's been a much longer series than I think any of us expected.
Yeah, very messy series for both teams, but a lot to take away from and a lot to learn for both of them. Even though Paragon has lost here, or sorry, not Paragon, Belfast Storm have lost here. They were in the driver's seat for 2 games, and I'm so excited to see what they can do in the next iteration of the UKL. And of course, Paragon, what a comeback. If they can bring a little bit more of that decisiveness that we saw in that late game team fight, they have every chance to beat Ruddy. But overall, the biggest thing I have to say is if I vote for you to win, just expect to lose at this point.
All right, we'll watch out for the curse in the next round. Melee, thank you so much for coming on at late notice. What's your overall impression? What do you take away from today?
That was absolute carnage, but that's exactly what I expected, and it's exactly what I want, right? I'm really excited to see how Paragon is going to perform against Ruddy, since they have met in the best of 3 in round 1. So that was very one-sided for Ruddy back then. So maybe let's see if Paragon can take some momentum out of this series and take it with them, and maybe give Ruddy a little bit more of a run for their money. I'm really excited to see who actually makes it to the finals in the end to meet Verdant. But I'm very satisfied with the games today. I've had a lot of fun, and I'm very glad, as always, that I could be a part of it.
As ever, thank you so much for tuning in. The revenge of Paragon versus Ruddy will be our next match, the lower bracket finals, coming to you this Thursday. We'll see you at 7. Tune in. More carnage, more action, and more 4 Nations. From all of us here tonight, thank you so much, and good night.